message and everything. Hello. Hey. Hello. Well, if everyone's here, do you guys want to go and get started? Yes. All right, cool. Okay, well, again, my name is Shayla Raquel, and before we dive into everything, so I want to make sure I've got everybody's names. We've got Sherry, and Danielle, and Heath, and then what's your name?
Crystal.
Crystal. Okay, great. Well, I'm so glad that you guys are here. What I'd like to do first is tell you a little bit about myself, and then maybe ask you guys a little bit about your goals with publishing and maybe where you're at with your book. So let's go ahead and I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm an editor. I've been in the publishing industry for 9 years. I am also an author. I'm a marketer. I love to do book marketing. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm also a book blogger, which is just code for people give me books to read for free, and then I talk about them. I'm also, as you can see, a speaker. I am a self-publishing mentor because I love self-publishing. I think it's wonderful, so I love to guide people on their self-publishing journeys, but most importantly, I am a dog mom. These are my 3 books. So the very first thing technically the second thing I ever published was the pre-publishing checklist, which is what I based this curriculum off of, much more in depth. But the pre-publishing checklist is a freebie that you get when you sign up for my email newsletter. It's always been free, and it will always be free, because it can be very frustrating to get into the indie world for the first time and not have a clue what to do. So I made the pre-publishing checklist. I also am the organizer for the Yukon Writers Society in Yukon, Oklahoma. So Shivers in the Night here is a group anthology with suspenseful and thrilling short stories. So my short story, The Rotting, is published in there, which is about a woman who works on a body farm in Texas. And one day a body comes in and she recognizes it. So that is my short story in Shivers in the Night. And then, of course, my novel, well, this is Shivers in the Night, self-published. And then this is my novel, The Suicide Tree, which took 3 years to write because I suffer from writer's block, which actually means writer's procrastination. That's actually what that means. And so it took a long time, but this one's done. It is a science fiction adventure novel, and it was very, very fun to write. If you have any interest in Italy at all, I've got plenty of that in there. But of course, like I said, the most important thing is being a dog mom. So these are my little babies. That's Wednesday, my Doberman. This is Chanel, my Dachshund, and my new little baby, Baker. I know I'm in Texas, so being an Oklahoma Sooners fan might get some tomatoes thrown at me, but Baker Mayfield was the former quarterback for OU, and so I decided to name my Dachshund after him. And he actually came along with me this weekend for his first road trip and has just basically slept the whole time. So, you know, it's just been holy terror, let me tell you. And then that one is my little diva. Definitely the diva of them all. So I want to hear just a little bit about you guys. You know, I'll go ahead and start with Sherry. You told me that you're working on a memoir. So will this be your first book ever? Okay, and you're obviously wanting to self-publish it or you wouldn't be here, right? Okay, so real quick, what inspired you to do the memoir? You know, like what made you decide, like out of anything in the world I could write, I want it to be my memoir?
Okay, you might want to sit down.
All right. First, we're going to learn about book blurbs and saying your story in 150 words of fear.
No, in 1984, my husband of 15 years was arrested for something he didn't do. Mm-hmm. And we went to court, and he was convicted, spent 32 years on death row, and was executed in 2015. Oh my. So during that process, I realized I was going to write a book about our life and how we got through that and all the nuances and everything. So
I've got 2 books in here written by federal prisoners.
Really?
2. Yep. They're both memoirs, so we have lots to talk about.
Good. And
how important it is to write about those things. By the way, in my also not so free time, I'm also a chaplain at the jail ministry in Oklahoma County. And so one of the things that prompted me to do that was working with federal prisoners, former federal prisoners, and getting to learn more about it and seeing the need there. So that is just really, really cool. I love it. See, it's just amazing the things that we have in common. Danielle, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you write or want to write, or?
Just fiction stories. I've been writing since I was a little girl. My mom I would tell her stories, and she would type them on the computer to save them and for me to take to school and read to class and things. But I'm here because I don't know, I have this weird form of anxiety where I love to write. I know it's what I want to do, what I was meant to do, but I start thinking ahead about the publishing process or getting published, and it freaks me out, and I feel like nobody's ever going to want to publish my book, all these things, so, and then it puts me in a place where I stop. So now, most of my favorite authors nowadays started off as self-published authors through Amazon or, all sorts of different things, and so when I saw this pop up, I was like, yes, this is a place that I
So
need
do you
to
like young adult? Do you like science fiction? Do you like fantasy? Do you like romance?
all of it.
Okay. We're going to have fun figuring out your genre, don't worry. Heath, why don't you tell me a little bit about you?
Writing has always been something of interest to me. Even in high school, I wrote and won some awards in my high school class.
Oh, awesome. That's cool.
And so then I did the adult thing and went to college for the degree that would give me a job and pay, nursing.
Oh, my
And-
mom's an RN.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Something stable with a check, because I just thought it was just something I was interested in high school. Through my life, lots of ups and downs, upheavals, everyone has their story.
Of course.
Just finished grad school last fall, and with that being behind me and professionally, I've achieved everything I want to be. It was time to turn the light to myself,
Sure.
and I want to use it as a form of expression and therapy, and I have a list of things I want to write about and the style and genres. And then I sell the self-publishing, so I wanted to kind of take ownership of that, kind of like what you said.
Yeah.
If I could have options.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I like having the control.
Oh, yes. I'm just a little bit of a control freak.
Yeah, me too.
So what genre do you think you might write in?
I like semi-autobiographical.
Okay.
That was probably be my therapy session. So then fiction and thriller and
Yes.
mystery.
Oh, excellent. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, Crystal, is that correct? All right, you're up next.
I'm Crystal. I am a freelance writer and a fantasy author. I have one self-published novel, and I just finished the first draft of the sequel back in
Congrats.
November. So, and self-publishing is hard.
Yes, it is.
And I am terrible at the marketing side of it. So, which is why I'm here. But so fantasy, that my first book is high fantasy, and then I also have drafts of 2 romance novellas that I plan to do under a pseudonym as well, that are in first draft state. But my day job is I'm a freelancer, so I'm an entertainment writer. So.
You are absolutely awesome. It's so great to hear all this. I like to get to know you guys a little bit better and have a clear idea of where you're at. And as you can see, everyone's in different places, aren't they? We are going to be talking about marketing today. Now, book marketing is probably, I would say, the most popular thing that I'm asked to speak on. And for the writers writing workshops in Dallas, I've done a 3-hour seminar solely on book marketing alone. Although we won't be able to cover every little thing, we will be digging into a lot of it. Before we dig in, I want you guys to know this is an interactive class. So if I say something and you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, wave your hands, yell, throw something, I don't know, but ask and say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Or maybe you have a really specific question and you're like, okay, how would this work with my book? The really cool thing about this is that I'm not on a stage with 200 people where I can't answer their questions. I'm here with just a few of you guys, and I can I can answer your specific questions, and we can come up with a plan. So really understand this is very much an interactive class. All right, so this is one of my favorite quotes. The good news about self-publishing is you get to do everything yourself. The bad news about self-publishing is you get to do everything yourself. I think that pretty much sums up self-publishing in a nutshell. There's also another personal favorite of mine by Rain Hall. She says, I'm paraphrasing, but basically she says, an author needs a traditional publisher as much as he needs a tapeworm. And that always cracked me up because I actually love both. I love traditional publishing and self-publishing. but some people are very hardcore about self-pub, just like they are about traditional. So hopefully by the end of this class, you will have a really clear-cut understanding of how to pursue the self-publishing path and make sure that it's the right road for you to go down. Before we even start thinking about self-publishing, we got to make sure that you're actually ready to take that on. So first of all, before you head down publishing path, there's just a few things I want you guys to think about regarding your book. Don't let this freak you out, okay? But have you gone through several revisions of your manuscript? That's one of the first things to think about. You know, is this thing even complete? You know, before I even sent my book off to my content editor, I had gone through tons of revisions of my book. I wanted to make sure that it was ready. How about, plot holes if you're doing fiction? How about factual errors? One of the things I see the most with nonfiction, sometimes authors accidentally plagiarize. I really don't think that the ones I've worked with have gone out of their way to plagiarize. It's just that sometimes they think, oh, that's a cool article, I'm going to copy and paste that in there real quick, and they don't cite it. And so that can be something you want to watch out for. Do you know your genre? We just talked about that a little bit. And actually, it's okay if you don't. You'll figure it out. Now, the one thing you can't do is just say like, oh, it's just fiction. It's just fiction. Well, it's not. It's got to be something, right? So you can figure that out with the help of the next thing here. Have you subjected your work to criticism? Beta readers, we're going to talk about that later, but beta readers are wonderful. We'll learn more about them. I use beta readers. Writers groups. A lot of writers groups have critique class, they'll critique your excerpt, they'll critique this, that. That's a wonderful way to get some constructive feedback on your work. I've done that as well. Is it complete? Don't worry, I have an asterisk for that. If you've answered yes to all these questions, then you can begin the self-publishing process. But if not, don't worry. Because if your book is not done, I have people come to me all the time who want to hire me, or like my friend Blake Atwood, for example, for ghostwriting. Maybe I have this amazing idea for a leadership self-help book, and I have a pretty good amount of the material, but the idea of organizing it and an outline and this and that, I don't know how to even do that. Well, you can work with a ghostwriter, you can work with a developmental editor, somebody who comes along and helps you restructure and organize and get that content looking really amazing. This is somebody who really focuses on the big picture of your book. This isn't somebody you'd hire to look at grammar and spelling on all those things. Again, we'll dig deeper into this later, but these are the first things to start thinking about when you're ready to play around with the idea of self-publishing. The very first thing in my pre-publishing checklist is to choose an editor. That's really going to be the first place that you start. Also, one thing to know, I'm so glad you guys are taking notes. I always recommend it, but the slides, I'll have a link for you guys via email at the end, and so you guys can cheat and go through all this, but definitely take your own notes too. Just know that if you can't type fast enough, just remember I'll give you the slides. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about an editor. Too many authors hand off their books to inexperienced editors, or my personal favorite, skip the editing process entirely. Now, there will always be errors in a book. Have you guys ever met anybody perfect? Okay, so then in order for me to produce a perfect book, I would have to be a perfect human being. Not gonna happen. An error-free book does not exist. And if you can find one, I will eat that book. Okay, so it does not exist. There will even those amazing, a Penguin Random House published book, it's just how it is. But you want to get your book as clean and polished and gorgeous as possible, which is why you want to work with an editor. And also, be respectful towards your readers. How would you feel if you were reading a book and it was so riddled with errors you couldn't even turn the next page? Be respectful toward them. Show them that you care about their feelings. So here are some things I want you guys to consider. One of the first things you'll want to do is to figure out your word count. In your manuscript, you can see that in Microsoft Word, or if you're using Google Docs or Scrivener, whatever you want, you need that word count because basically that's what all editors use to come up with a fixed price. They'll charge you, 3 cents per word, 4 cents per word, 2 cents, whatever, and so they need to know your word count. Well, what if I am still working on my book and I don't know the word count? What it's going to be? Well, it depends on your genre. So let's say that you are doing science fiction. Honestly, guys, a science fiction novel 80,000 words is kind of considered low for like sci-fi. You would actually, there would be nothing wrong with pushing it to 100,000 words or even more in some cases. So you could think like, oh, okay, you know, I'm at 50,000 words. Technically, that is a novel, isn't it? 50,000 words is a novel. But my genre is sci-fi, or my genre is an epic fantasy. So I know I probably need to keep going up. So you can kind of gauge an idea of what you'd like that to be. Let's say you're writing a memoir, and right now, you know, you're writing, and you have like 110,000 word memoir. You need to shave it down. Then you got to go the other way. You got to cut it way down, because then it's going to be way too long. My personal idea of a sweet spot for a memoir is 70,000 words or below. That's a really good sweet spot for a memoir. Now, I have met a woman who wrote a 270,000 word memoir and kept pitching it to agents and just was so mad because she couldn't figure out why they wouldn't take it. So I told her, well, you might want to shave off about 200,000 words. And she didn't really like that response at all. But my goal is to always be honest. So next up, once you have a pretty good idea of what your word count is, you're going to want to set a budget. Ah, yes. Editing is not free. I mean, I guess it is if you had your mom edit it, but I really wouldn't recommend doing that. Even if my mother were a professional editor, I wouldn't hire her. Because she's, I mean, honey, this is the best thing I've ever read in my life. And no, we don't want that. We want somebody who will look at my book from a completely different perspective. Now, realize that not every editor will have her prices on their website. Okay, that's actually kind of rare that they would say what their prices are, because every author is different, every timeline is different, there's different types of editing, there's different genres require more time. So every single price I give, it's based on the manuscript and the timeline and everything. I can't just be like, oh, it's just a one-size-fits-all price. So make sure that you talk to your potential editor about, okay, you know, like, I'm researching editors right now, and what should I budget? What do you charge for content editing? What do you charge for copy editing? There's nothing wrong with starting way early and getting a good idea of what to budget. You can research editors who are familiar with your subject or genre. Realize that there's absolutely nothing wrong with hiring an editor who's never edited thrillers, okay? Because maybe they really, really want to edit it, and maybe they've been reading thrillers their whole life, and so they're probably very well versed in it. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you go hire somebody who's, that's all they've ever done is edit children's books, and you ask them to go edit your thriller, you're probably not going to be very satisfied with the results. Could you hire them to like copy edit or proofread and be fine? Most likely. But if you're having them work on content, that's a different thing, isn't it? Because they're so used to children's books, how are they going to know what to watch out for with a crime thriller? Alright, so contacting the editors, you guys can do this whenever in the world you want. Even when I have people contact me before their book is even started, because they want a good idea of what to budget, they want to know my pricing, they want to know all sorts of things about me. There is nothing wrong with that. Contact them and say, hey, you know, this is what I'm working on, this is the word count I'm shooting for, this is where I'm at right now, what do you charge? Start keeping track of that so that you can choose the editor who's best for you. There is also nothing wrong with talking to an editor's past clients. A lot of editors already have their client names on their website, so you can go check that out. One of the cool things I do, a little cheat, is you can go to Amazon and type in the editor's name. Many times an author will add an editor as a contributor, and so if you type in their name on Amazon, many times they'll pop up with books they've edited, and then you can go read the reviews. Go check out their reviews, and if there's a lot of complaints about errors or something, that might be a good indicator that maybe I don't want to work with this editor after all. Do your research, ask around. It is a very small pool, this self-pub industry. It does seem like it's quite huge, but I will tell you, I know just about every designer, just about every interior formatter. We all get to know each other in this industry. That's why, you know, I said Tex Thompson, and Sherry knew what I was talking about, and she said Blake Atwood, and I know who she was. We all kind of get to know each other. So you can, let's say that you find a cover designer before you find an editor. Say, hey, do you recommend any editors that I could work with or something? Oh yeah, I know this one. Stay away from this one though, because I had to blah blah. You learn a lot. It's just like with anything. So don't be afraid to ask. Another thing you can ask for is a sample edit. It's okay that not all editors offer this. Some do it for free. Some charge. There's nothing wrong with any of these at all. You just need to ask. I'll tell you, it is very rare that I personally do sample edits. And just, I think the reason is because I've been doing it for so long, and they see all the testimonials, and they've maybe read a book that my client did or something. So sometimes I mean, it's kind of rare that I get asked to do one. So, but you are welcome to ask them to do that. Hey, will you give me an idea of your editing style? I mean, this is your book after all. Go ahead and take a look at the edits. Don't just take their word for it. You know, take a look at everything. Hopefully they act as a teacher as well as an editor. You know, just because they go in there and clean up the whole thing, are they maybe like explaining why they did what they did? It would be nice for you to learn as you go along. Then go ahead and choose your editor, but always get a contract. Please get a contract. If you do not know what a contract should look like when working with an editor, I'm always happy to, you know, give you kind of a boilerplate of what that would look like. But ultimately, it's to keep you safe, and it's to keep the editor safe so that you know when your payments are due. You know when the editor is supposed to have her stuff done at what time and so on. That's just smart to have a contract. All right, so let's pause for just a quick second before I head into the types of editors. Is there anybody here who didn't know you had to hire an editor for self-pub, or was that probably pretty obvious, I would assume? Have you guys worked with editors before? Have you guys had good experiences overall? Crystal's like, yeah.
There were still quite a few errors that slipped through. Yeah. So it was, I got what I paid for.
I got what I paid for. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and learn a little bit about the different types of editing, which some of you might be familiar with. But either way, it's really smart to just kind of have a good overview so that you know. At the top, not actually an editor, but a beta reader is usually like the first person who's ever going to read your book. It can be a family member. I don't always recommend that, but it's usually going to be like a friend, maybe it's not even a friend that lives by you. You know, it's like one of your friends from an author group. It might be a writers group member. It might be something of that nature. They read your book and they kind of give you a good idea of, wow, you know, I really enjoyed this character. He's so full, you know, really three-dimensional. I love his flaws. But I gotta tell you, you gotta work on your setting because I just couldn't visualize anything. This is someone who is an avid reader in your genre. I have learned this the hard way, but if I were to go give my science fiction adventure novel to someone who has only ever read romance, I mean, that's just what they read, they're not gonna like my book, right? And they're not gonna really offer sound feedback. So make sure that you have somebody who reads, that seems obvious, and somebody who reads in your genre. Like I said earlier, we're talking a little bit about a developmental editor. Now that's something that I do as well. Again, it starts from, I mean, we're talking about the big picture of your book. You can do this for novels or nonfiction. It is always, I mean, really, I would say the majority of my developmental edits are with memoirs. I honestly, probably memoirs and then any type of self-help book. Usually a lot of my developmental edits will start around that area. I mean, we're talking about creating an outline, and even if the author comes to me and says, hey, I've already written 10 chapters, well, did you have an outline? No, I just kind of, you know, blah, 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 and that's what I did. And I will say, okay, well, let's structure this. So my job is to work on structure and organization and tone and making sure that you're writing the best you can. In a way, a developmental editor is kind of like your, you know, your college writing professor or something. That's really a good way to look at them. They're there to teach you and help you and, you know, really just guide you down this new road of writing. A content editor is different. I kind of like to think of a content editor as someone in between a substantive editor and then like a heavy copy editing situation. I kind of like to think of them in there. Your book is already done at this point, okay? Let's say your book's already done, you've stuck to this outline, whatever, you've really, really worked hard, you've used beta readers and so on, but you know you've got some issues with sentence structure. You keep finding all these inconsistencies and plot holes. And I mean, you know that it can be so much better. You're just not ready for that copy edit yet. A content editor would be unbelievably helpful with that. You know, they can really help take your writing to the next level. So they're not there to restructure your book. They're not there to come and rip everything apart necessarily. They're there to just make things better, take it from good to great. A copy editor, also known as a line editor, someone you guys are probably familiar with. This is going to be the person who loves, you know, we got to check the grammar and the style and the punctuation and those pesky hyphens and everything that is going to be under mechanics, every single book needs a copy editor. Not every single book will need a developmental editor or a content editor, but every book needs a copy editor. So that's somebody who's going to be working very hard to ensure that your book is just beautifully polished. The final person that you might encounter, depending on which route you go and where your book is a proofreader. A proofreader is not the same thing as a copy editor. Although I do both, it doesn't mean that I treat the projects the same. In fact, did you know a proofread shouldn't even happen until your book has been typeset by an interior formatter? I should be proofreading your book as a PDF, whereas a copy editor might be working in like the Word doc, let's say, and they're going to be using track changes. If I don't have a typeset document, I could miss a whole lot of stuff because the interior formatter might not realize that she just moved this line down and it looks weird. Maybe it happened earlier over here. Like, see that? Like, that could happen in your book and I wouldn't know it unless I was proofreading the typeset document. Weird things happen with hyphens, weird things happen with punctuation, so there should be a very minimal amount of errors for the proofreader to work on. Even after proofreading. I mean, I had a content editor, I had 2 proofreaders, I'm an editor myself, I've still found a few errors in my book. That is life. But the point is that you get it as clean as you possibly can. Now, if your every single page were riddled with errors, that would be a different situation. So let's pause for just a second here and let's talk about where you guys are right now with your manuscript. Yes, this is like the first thing you're going to do when you start down the self-publishing path is work with an editor. But where you guys are right now with your books, where do you think you would need help with? Like, where do you think you would need to start? Would you need to be starting with a beta reader right now, or would you need to move down the line? What do you think, Keith?
Well, I haven't even written anything yet, so this is just all information gathering. And
Great.
the sponge effect right now for
Good,
me.
good.
So.
So now you'll kind of have a good idea. Once
Yeah.
your book's done,
Exactly.
then you'll have a good idea of where you might need to be. By the way, a lot of times when I have people come to me for the substantive editing, and they can't, maybe their budget doesn't allow to work with me, I tell them, I say, okay, now, I can give you a list of other developmental editors, and here they are, and you can go talk to them, but they're going to be the same price, maybe a little bit cheaper, but not by much. So here's what I recommend. I tell them to take their book, because 9 times out of 10, they did not work with beta readers. I will tell them, go take that manuscript and go get some beta readers, and start really working hard on rewrites, go through it. I have had them come back to me later, and the project was much cheaper, because by then, they were in between this area. And it didn't cost them as much money. So developmental editing is very expensive. So basically, the harder you work on your manuscript and the more you understand about the writing process and all the elements that we're talking about here, then the easier, the cheaper things will be when it's time to work with an editor. What do you think?
So would it be fair to say that the way you have them listed here, the cheaper ones and then it goes down?
So beta readers are free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they should, are there paid beta readers? Yes, I do not recommend that. I believe that beta readers should be free. These are the first people. They're not there to be working on grammar and stuff. Their job is to tell you if your story's good or not. So yeah, the developmental editing will always be the most expensive because it takes the most amount of time, the most amount of work and dedication. And yes, then content editing, then copy editing, proofreading. I don't like to see anybody pay over 2 cents a word for proofreading. If you pay over that, I do think that's way too high for proofreading.
So, well, I was just thinking that I'm in this point where I need developmental, but now you're saying, because I do have some offers from professional people that are
Let them
English
read
teachers
your-
to do the beta reader first.
Then let them do that. Make sure that they've read memoirs before.
Yeah.
Otherwise, don't even bother. And what I do want to give you, there's a caveat, okay? So you guys are going to send your book off to beta readers, right? And you're going to be like, oh my goodness, these people are going to be so awesome. I bet I'm going to have an email in 2 days, and they're going to have this whole list of, you guys need to go ahead and tell yourselves right now, quote, I will be okay if so-and-so does not finish reading my book, because it will happen, and it's okay. Nobody's trying to be mean. It's just that some people don't take the reading thing as seriously, and we have all these expectations. I've always said when I die, my epitaph on my Tombstone is going to say her expectations were too high of other people. That's what it's going to say. So go ahead and just lower them a little bit and understand that it's okay if not everybody reads the whole book. It's okay if so-and-so didn't read it at all. Just hope that maybe a few will do it. So there's nothing
I've
wrong
already
with
had
that.
that happen to me.
So you know, it is. It's
Like,
just,
why is
it's-
she calling?
yeah, why hasn't, man, my phone should be ringing off the hook by now. They should be telling me this is a New York Times bestseller. But that's just not reality. So, yes, I would recommend, I started with beta readers. In my writers group, I have them read stuff. I mean, it definitely, that way I didn't have to start with developmental editing. You know, I did content editing instead. And to be honest, I'm sure I could have gone straight to copy editing, but I'm way too anal retentive for that. So I wanted to make sure I had no plot holes. That's why I wanted to work with a content editor, and I did have some.
One of the things that's helped me being overly, I don't know, maybe I haven't taken too many classes, but some of the classes I've done have been 6 and 8 week classes, and we do critique sessions.
That's awesome. How
And it's
cool.
like getting free editing. I mean, they're not in doing your whole book,
Mhm.
but they may do a whole chapter.
Right.
And then you kind of get a feel for where you're going, some of the
Yeah,
mistakes
and you know
can
your
be making.
strengths or your weaknesses.
Uh-huh.
You know, we did critique night Thursday night in my Yukon Writers Society, and you know, one person like, oh my goodness, you know, the characterization was so phenomenal. That's somebody who, if she was working with a content editor, probably would need to focus a lot on characterization. That's her strength.
Mhm.
But she's gonna need a lot of focus on dialogue because her dialogue was very weak. So the content editor would probably spend a lot of time teaching her about realistic dialogue. Yeah.
It also helps you if you're like me, the first time person, and you think you don't know what you're doing, to have a group. Like I have a writer's group, and then I'll have these classes, and then when they come back and say, oh my gosh, this is so good, and so then you feel like, okay, I need to keep doing this.
Yeah, it does
Rather than-
definitely.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen a huge difference in the members' writing. In fact, we talked about that, the tremendous difference that I've seen since their first critique. Okay, so do you guys have any other questions about editing?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up?
How many beta readers?
Don't overdo it. I mean, I'm talking like
I have
a very
3
small handful. That's great.
Okay.
You'll think like, oh, I'm gonna send it to like 10, 15. No,
I think of 2, maybe.
just a tiny handful is fine.
And is that just because too many opinions cloud the?
That, but also you have to realize you got to read through all their edits, like their comments, so to speak, and you have to understand, you know, time is money, and if you're spending hours and hours and hours and hours sifting through 15 different people's opinions on your book and comments, that's gonna be very frustrating.
It's interesting too, because if you give it to 4 or 5 people, you may get confused. It's like you'll have 3 people that are on the same path of, I like the way you put this together, I like the way you're telling the story, and then you'll have other 2 people say, no, you should have started this one back here. And
Yep.
so then you're like, okay, well, who do I?
And that's when you go with your gut,
Yeah.
because you will have such stark differences in opinion, and you have to go with your gut on that. That will happen.
I had that happen.
You will, and then you
Yeah.
just have to decide what's best for the story, what's best for.
I had 2 people that like loved the romance aspect of the story, and one of them was like, "You kind of overdid how in love with her," and then but the other 2 were like, "I just loved how and so
Yep.
yeah, you just kind of.
I mean, I experienced it too. Yeah, so you just have to go with your gut.
And I don't mean to dwell on this,
No,
but
it's
I've
okay.
also found I'm in a writer's group that I've been in for 2 years. We now trust each other. We all know what the
Yes, you do.
personalities are. And so when they will probably be somebody in there, 1 or 2 of those will be my beta readers, because I trust what they say. And so if they come back and say, this, you're too wishy-washy here, or I don't understand this, and I can trust that they're doing it. Because I've been in some classes for 6 weeks with some people that somebody in that class will just like rub you wrong, and they'll tell you a critique, and you're like, I don't care what you, in your mind you're thinking,
Yep.
I don't give a rat's ass what you say. It's not,
Yeah, you are
it's-
very, very, very right.
I mean, it's like, so it's more like if you can find you a writer's group,
Yeah.
that is
And
the
treat your
best thing. Yeah.
writers groups are. I mean, it's the reason why my book is finished. I will always, it is the sole reason. Because at that point, I had spent 2.5 years and it just existed. You know what I mean? And it was just awful, and it was really not, actually, it was totally not finished. And then when I took over as organizer in May 2017, my book was completely and utterly finished by the end of 2017, December. I sent it to beta readers January 2018, and then did my rewrites throughout the rest of that year and published in October of last year. So without it, I really don't think I would have finished it. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about ISBNs and what barcodes, copyright, all that fun stuff, self-publishing that you get to be in charge of. So every manuscript needs a copyright page, which I will show you an example of in just a second. It comes after your title page in your book. Usually the editor will handle that for you. I have a template I use. If not, just ask your editor to do that for you. And you want to make sure you have the adorable little C symbol there with your name and the year that it's being published. You can send your manuscript into the U.S. Copyright Office for a fee. Now, Sarah Hawkins, who runs the blog law, said this is one of the areas where most lawyers will agree that the small fee that you give to the U.S. Copyright Office is definitely worth paying. While it's not required, it isn't, by the way, because copyright of your book exists without registration. To pursue most legal action, the work must be registered. So what that is essentially saying is if you wanted to publish your book and you would have that copyright page, not the actual copyright that you have from the United States Copyright Office, you can do that. That's fine. If anybody decides to come along and just absolutely, plagiarize your entire book, if you decide to pursue legal action, you will have a better defense if you can prove that you sent it in and you have that certificate from the U.S. Copyright. Let's look at it real quick. This is just a pretty typical copyright page. Sometimes these can have a whole lot more things in it, more disclaimers. In fact, nonfiction books usually have a little bit more than what a novel would have. But it always just starts out with the author and the name of the book. And as a self-publishing author, you get to create the name of your own publishing company. So mine is Curious or Editing LLC because that's actually the name of my registered company. So that's just what I always use. So now you guys are going, oh, well, do I need to go get an LLC? No. You just need to use your social security number for tax purposes when you set everything up. Let's say with Amazon, which don't worry, we're going to cover. But that's what, Bill McCurry did here. Now, usually you have your editor on here, your cover designer, your interior formatter. You always have your little, under copyright protection here. For fiction, I like to use this little disclaimer, it's just a work of fiction, calm down if the event is similar, don't worry. And then your ISBN in the front. Also, if you're doing nonfiction, I work with a lot of Christian authors, and so anytime that they use verses, I have to use a copyright disclaimer from the NIV, from the ESV. If you have a book that offers medical advice, there's a disclaimer for that. Your copyright page can have a lot of stuff in it. But pretty typically, that's what you'll see when you have a copyright page. I'll show you right here so that you guys can actually see it. Okay, so here is Bruce's copyright. You can see it here. It's got a little bit more stuff in it because this is a very amazing, by the way, historical fiction book. So he even actually had a couple of verses in here because this takes place in the 1600s with Martin Luther. And so he even had that disclaimer I was just telling you guys about for the NIV. So that comes after your title page, right before the dedication of your book. So let's talk a little bit about your ISBN. Every book needs one unless it's an ebook. Ebooks are not required to have an ISBN. You saw that earlier, right here, okay? It's just your little identification number. You can get it for free if you publish through Amazon KDP Print. We're going to talk all about that. You can get it for free. However, if you want to try to get into maybe some bigger name bookstores or even some certain kinds of indie bookstores, sometimes they want that paid ISBN, not the free one from Amazon. You can get paid ones from Bowker, which I have listed there. They are expensive. I think it's like $125 for one ISBN, and then they have a pack of 10 for I think it's 200 and something. I can't remember. It's so ridiculous. Now, on my way here, I got the coolest news in the world. Barnes & Noble is officially allowing self-published books to be in their bookstores. Now, thank God, because Barnes & Noble, I mean, they can't keep a CEO for more than a year, and their stocks, I mean, they just keep losing money, so they probably got smart, finally, after all these years. There is a bit of a caveat, though. You have to have it available in the Barnes & Noble Nook. You know what I'm talking about? You have your ebook available there. Which a lot of authors do that anyway, unless they are not going wide and they're in KDP Select, which we'll talk about. Okay, so the other thing you're going to need if you're doing print, you need a barcode. So we've got one right here. Amazon KDP makes them for you. If you don't want to purchase one, they're like $10 from Bowker. But if you don't want to purchase one, Amazon will make one for you. You just have to have your cover designer allow a space here for them. Now, you can realize that sometimes there will be a price there. There are other times when a price does not show up on a barcode. This is a hardback cover, right? Amazon KDP at the moment does not offer hardback for printing, but Ingram Spark does. Ingram Spark requires that you have a retail price on your barcode. Amazon KDP for paperback doesn't make you guys do that. So we're going to know that later, don't worry, we're going to get there. But just as something to keep in the back of your head, that's why if you ever look at self-published books, sometimes they have a price there and sometimes they don't. But that is also going to have your ISBN on the barcode. Okay, so let's pause real quick. I know that's kind of getting a little techy, but it's just things to think about. When you are working with an experienced interior designer, like an interior formatter, even an experienced cover design artist, they should know this stuff. The ones I work with, they already know all this stuff. They should. So when you get stuck, you really need to choose people that you can rely on to know the industry. That way you don't have a surprise. Pick people who know the industry well so they can answer your questions. Okay, so next up, we got to do a little bit of copywriting. Notice that's WRITING. What I mean by this is that your book is with your editor right now, okay? So you're doing the editing process, maybe you have some free time in your hands because she's working hard and you don't have to do anything yet. So you need to be preparing some other stuff. And I promise you, it sounds really easy, but it's one of the most difficult things you guys are going to do. So first of all, what I want you guys to consider doing, get an email address that is not AOL or Hotmail. In fact, if there's any way that you can go ahead and make sure it has your domain name there, and yes, we're going to talk about websites, but for example, like mine is hello@ShaylaRaquel.com. Why isn't it hello@gmail.com? Well, because I own the domain ShaylaRaquel.com. That's my website, right? But if I have a domain email address, when it's time to set up my email newsletter, when it's time to do all these things, I don't wind up in spam folders like I used to. That's a whole other conversation. Plus, it does look more professional. It's really nice to have that available. So you can do that. I can always answer questions on how to get a domain email address, but you have to start out with owning a domain. So how many of you have a website right now? Okay, you two. Okay, awesome. So author websites are really fun. I teach classes on that as well. But I will give you guys some links at the end of all this. I have a website how-to that just starts from beginning to end to explain what on earth do I do to set up an author website and why in the world do I need one. I'll answer very quickly because it is the central hub for all things you. That'll tell me about you. That'll tell me where to find your book. That'll tell me maybe some interviews you've done. If you blog at all, if you vlog, you did the video stuff. If you have reviews, I mean, there's just tons of stuff. That's where I can go to sign up for your email newsletter if I want. So many options for that website. So we will talk about that at some point today. But just know that eventually you'd like to go ahead and get that started. But I don't have my book done yet. Then you're in the perfect spot to get your website up and going. My authors get so frazzled when they come to me and they say, okay, I'm going to publish in 3 months, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, and I've already been doing this, and that. I'm like, great. It's awesome. So what's your website? My what now? And then they start freaking out because like, oh, I got to get that ready. Like, I need a website. And I'm like, yeah, it would have been great if you had one a long time ago, actually, but we can work with this, and we do. But it sure does help to get that done and out of the way ahead of time. Think about how many people might want to interview you. Maybe there's book bloggers that you want to read and review your book, which we'll talk about later. They would like to know a little bit about you. Well, why can't social media just work? It can, but it doesn't do any of the stuff that your website can do. Your website allows for some pretty tremendous Google presence after a while. I mean, how many of y'all have Googled just some type of, any author, I don't know, Mary Kubica or Stephen King or Lisa Geneva, whatever, and it pops up on Google and it has this really nice little map, kind of, and it says their name, they have this tagline, and you can click blog, and it's just right there in Google. It looks so nice, and it makes you feel like, hey, this is somebody, okay, all right, I don't have to hunt around and try to find their website, and it can be really frustrating. When, on both scenes, by the way, it can be very frustrating if I follow an author on Instagram, but they don't have a website. And so, I don't know anything about them. I try to hunt down their book on Amazon, and I don't have the right author name because apparently they have a pen name, and blah, 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 or the other way, right? I found their website. Oh, this is so cool. I want to follow them for now on nothing. They're like a ghost online, and that can be really frustrating. But we'll get into all that a little bit later. So you can get a domain name. I'm always asked, so it should be my book name, right? My URL for my website should be my book name. No, it should be your author name. Because would you have to go create a new website every single time you publish another book? That's really frustrating, right? You plan on, publishing more than one book, right? So you want to have that author name. Originally, I started out with CuriousOrEditing.com. One, it's very hard to spell unless you're a pretty big Alice in Wonderland fan. And two, nobody remembered that. They remembered Shayla, though. But they didn't really remember my super cool, blog name. We kind of are past that era where, you tried to come up with, the coolest, snazziest blog name. Now we just want your name. Just give me a name so I can find you. All right, remember I said you're going to be doing some stuff that's going to be really difficult. Your book blurb, it's so hard, you guys. Did you hear Crystal? She's like, oh, I'm having flashbacks. Book blurbs. What in the world is a book blurb? We'll pick a new book every time. That'll be fun. Let's pick a new book every time. All right. So this one, this is her book blurb right here. So it goes on the back cover of your book. It's your Amazon description. Some people like to tweak theirs up a little bit so that it's not the same. I'm neutral. I don't care either way. Your book blurb goes on your website. It goes, anywhere in the world you want it. I don't care. It is so hard to write, which is why I teach a class on it, because you just wrote, 70,000 word novel, let's say you just wrote a 70,000 word novel. Okay, great. Now condense that into 150 words or fewer. And you sit there and you think, what? Everything, you feel like everything is important. And so we can learn all about that at another time. Or I'm happy to give you my slides on that to learn about it. But book blurbs are really hard because it's just difficult to try to condense your book into something so small, but you got to do it. To me, what's harder than a book blurb is a bio. Some people will disagree with me on that. Writing your author bio, you sit down and you go, okay, who am I again? And you just stare at the screen and you're like, I don't know, I is writer. And you don't know what to do. I actually had my friend write mine for me in the very beginning because I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. It's weird trying to you almost have to kind of brag about yourself in the bio, and it's in third person, and it's hard. So maybe have a friend. Yes, think of it like that. Yes. So you have to, there's nothing wrong with getting a friend to help you out. I'm serious. That's what I did because I didn't know what to do. So you'll have to work on that. I like to see bios 75 to 100 words. Fewer than that is even better. I also like to see a super short and sweet bio for social media. You know those ones where it's just really emphatic. I do it too. Where it just says, I think mine's like editor, author, speaker, blogger, dog. Kind of what you saw at the very beginning. It's nice to have two of those. A very short one and then one around 75 to 100 words, unless, I don't know, you've written like 1 million books and you want to list them all. That would be kind of crazy. Next is the thing that you guys are going to hate the most is getting a professional-ish headshot. No, this click is not a professional headshot. What I did originally is I had my sister, she got her nice camera, and we got some natural lighting, and my adorable little nephew held a whiteboard behind me. and it actually looks so professional. But it was my face, like right about here, you know, and it looked great. And then I updated it last year, kind of the one you guys saw at the very beginning. I have some stuff like that. But in the beginning, that's what I did in the beginning. I didn't hire someone to do it in the beginning, but she did have a nice camera. We did make sure that it was a nice, clean background. We did make sure there wasn't like food and drink. Have you guys ever been on somebody's website? There's like all these, they have a picture of themselves and there's all this stuff in the background, or there's like a toilet in the corner, like way far off, and you think that doesn't look very professional, you know? So just try to do your best. It's awful. I hate it. I don't want anybody to take my picture. I don't want to do it. So I totally understand. In fact, I was telling you I was in Tulsa in December, and I had designed an author website for a woman named Marianne McCarthy. I think she might be in here. I don't know. I might not have brought her today. But anyway, she hated it. She's like, I don't want to do it, but I know we gotta have pictures for the website. And I'm like, we can do this. And I had to just work hard to make her laugh because you get so nervous. And I don't know if you guys ever, when you smile, does your mouth, like, you know what I'm talking about, tremble? That's what mine does. But it's okay, because people need to know what you look like. They need to see your beautiful face. I know it's not fun, but just do your best. All right, so let's talk a little bit, just very briefly, about your website. Okay, I know we've already talked about it a little bit. There's only two that I recommend. WordPress, everyone's pretty familiar with WordPress, I think. It's definitely come a long way. There's a lot of really well-known authors that use WordPress, and they look very beautiful. I personally don't design in WordPress. I have had a WordPress website before, but I don't design in it. Guess what? I know people who do. So if you guys need a website in WordPress, I'm happy to introduce you to some. As far as what I use personally, I use Squarespace. It's because I don't know how to code. And so Squarespace allows me to do all the cool things without coding, but it does cost moolah. So there is a yearly fee. But it's very, very beautiful. And if you want, we can look at some, or we can talk about it, whatever you want. I know, what does this have to do with self-publishing? Don't worry, we're getting there. Okay, so once you guys make all this cool stuff, go ahead and just compile it. You can make a media kit on your website, like my friend Erica did here. We'll go ahead and look at it real quick. Or what you could do is you can just keep it handy. You know, when you work with your cover designer, she's probably going to want to see that. You know, she might want to see your blurb. She might want to know a little bit about your book, so that when she creates the amazing, you know, cover for you, she actually knows what in the world it's about. So that's awfully small, but this is just a little media kit. So she went and made all this stuff. I worked with her on this, and that way, when it was time, like her book's being self-published, right? It's already done, but we were getting endorsements, we were getting book bloggers to review her book. She had working with a launch team. This way, I didn't have to be like, oh, let me email you her headshot, let me email you the book blurb. I just said, here's her media kit link, boom. You never have to mess with it again. So once it's done, if you don't have a website yet, no big deal, just keep it handy. Just keep all that stuff maybe in like a Google Doc or something, so that it'll be available. I mean, you can use this for anything. Maybe you're going to be on a podcast to talk about your book that you've been working on. Maybe you're going to do a Facebook Live interview. I mean, having that little link is so handy, just because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to spend 10 million years, trying to hunt down all these attachments and stuff. Remember that people live busy lives, and so if I can do something to make things a little bit simpler for them, then, practicing some convenience, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm always going to work hard to try to eliminate any extra steps. So let's go ahead and pause for just a second and discuss some of the things that we just talked about. Do you guys have any questions about a book blurb or a bio or a website? Why don't we go ahead and land there for just a little bit, and then we'll take a quick break before we start heading into the next fun part.
I think what's going to be the hardest part is forming the bio, since a lot of authors, especially when
What do
you're
you do
starting,
if you don't even have anything
Yeah.
published, right? Oh, I love that. That's a good question. So I have a couple of friends like that. They had a hard time because they thought, I have like nothing. What am I supposed to say? Well, remember that it's not permanent. Okay, remember that as things continue to grow with you as a writer, as you develop, as things change, your bio will be modified. I change my bio 2 or 3 times a year. and there is nothing wrong with that. Let's go look at my friend Janie Mary. The only thing she has published right now is she has a short story in Shivers in the Night, which happened last year. Otherwise, I mean, she hasn't done anything. Right now, she's pitching children's books. That's what she's trying to do right now. So she doesn't have a lot under her belt at all. She just got into the writing world 2 years ago. So this is her bio to give you an idea of what to do. Janie Mary is a wife and a new mother. She lives in her hometown of Yukon, Oklahoma. Earned her Bachelor of Science from UCL, majoring in early childhood education. Her house is full of boys. Philip, her husband, Luke, their infant son, 2 mountain dogs, 2 black cats, and 1 turtle. Named Godzilla, by the way. She is passionate about animals, nature, food, books, and traveling. She loves to read and write children's and YA sci-fi and fantasy. She aspires to be an accomplished author one day. Janie is the author of In Stitches, a short story in the anthology Shivers in the Night. She's currently pitching her children's picture book, Ready, Set, Swap. So I learned a whole lot about her, but I mean, it's okay that and at one point it didn't even say this, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that because I learned about the genres she likes. I learned about her, like, congratulations that you have 1 million awards. I do think that's amazing. Awards are amazing. But have you ever read a bio where that's it? And I'm like, well, what are your passions? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? You know, I want to know the things that you love. If you love manga and you own like every book, you know, manga book, cool, like tell me, I want to know those things. So she tells you a little bit about that. She tells you about her family and her education. Does that give you a good idea of kind of what to write for that? It's okay that you don't have anything published yet. There's nothing wrong with that. Just go ahead and start with what you've got. Try to focus in on your passions. You could also say what inspires you to write, just one line. You know, something about like, I don't know, she's inspired by her yearly travels to Morocco. Something like that. Any other questions about blurbs, bios, headshots, websites? Any other questions regarding that?
I have a resource for somebody who wants help with their blurbs, and it's
Yes,
actually
I would love
a Facebook
that.
group.
Okay.
It's called Can you pull up the group real quick? Sorry. On Facebook, the group is called the Indie Cover Project, and it's a group of authors, designers, cover designers that will help authors formulate a better blurb.
Love it. That's a great resource. Facebook groups, if you're not in any, we'll talk about them soon, but such a wonderful resource.
Indie cover what?
It's called Indie Cover Project.
Excellent.
So they'll definitely give you feedback, and they even have some helpful little files and stuff on how to create a book blurb and stuff.
So at this point, your editor's still working on your book. You've been working hard. You know, you've been trying to do some stuff. Like, take advantage of this time. Your book isn't in your hands anymore, so you can't slobber all over it. Go spend some time doing some other things, right? One thing that you can do in the meantime, now some people do this before they ever even look for an editor, and that's fine too. You have a target market. I don't care what genre you've written. There's somebody out there, and hopefully a few somebodies, who are interested in that genre. So, I mean, how in the world do you figure all of that out? I think one of a common misconception, sometimes I'll ask authors, I'll say, okay, like, you know, who do you think your target market is? Oh, it's for everybody. This book is for everybody. And I'm like, no, it's not. Well, I mean, it is. Everyone should read it. No. I know, believe me, it would be so amazing if everyone read my book, but there's a whole lot of everyone's who would not like my book, right? So we want to be able to focus on those people who love that genre, who love that style of writing, who fall in love with you, by the way, through author branding. And then, great, now we're on the right track. You know, I'm not interested in spending all my time converting readers of erotica into reading The Suicide Tree. That's a waste of my time. If that's what they read all the time, they're not going to like my book. So I got to focus on people who read in my genre. Okay, so how do we figure this out? Well, Amazon is definitely going to be your best friend. Once you've figured out your genre, you can do a lot of fun market research. And you're going to be kind of asking some questions like, who's reading books like mine? You know, am I in the young adult category? Are my readers going to be ages 13 to 18? By the way, young adult, about roughly 50% of YA readers are people in their 20s and early 30s. So you have to keep that in mind as well. It's not just teenagers who read young adult. Okay, how old are they? So let's say you're doing children's and you're doing a picture book. Do you know how old your reader would actually be? Because a picture book, around 500 to a max of 700 words, is going to probably be geared toward ages 4 to 8. Okay? Then you start getting into middle grade, which is like 9 to 11, maybe 12, so on and so forth. You've got to figure this stuff out. Let's say we've got, I don't know, maybe you have a memoir that's geared toward baby boomers, okay? So you're probably not going to spend all of your time marketing to Generation Z, okay? That wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. You'd want to make sure that you are targeting the right people. Let me give you an example. So there's a woman named M.L. Gardner. She wrote a historical fiction novel based in 1929 during the Great Depression era, and obviously, I mean, she's done very, 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 very well as an indie author, but I mean, that she had so many other things in here she could talk about, right? So we know her genre is historical fiction. She has a good idea of who her readers are, etc., etc. Well, what can she talk about? Like on social media, who wants to read this type of stuff? What are the opportunities? So many. What she would do on social media, is, how many of you have followed somebody on Facebook, like an author? And every post is check out my book, buy my book, leave a review, check out my book. Have you checked out my book yet? And then you're racing to the unfollow button. That is not how social media marketing should be done. What she did instead is she's in love with this era, right? I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? So she would talk about the things that they wore in the late 1920s and early 30s. She would talk about the Great Depression recipes. She would show, like, who were the big time celebrities around that, like, what were they about? Did they show up in the book at all? In fact, she was so popular with her Great Depression recipes that her fans begged her to make a book. And so she wrote a Great Depression era recipe book. I mean, it's so funny, but every book, you have those passions behind it. My passion, one of mine was Italy. And so there's a lot of Italian everything in there. And so I would post a lot about that. I would talk about that because it had to do with my book and my passions. Also realize that if you're doing nonfiction, okay, and you're thinking about your target market, they have pain points that need solutions. So you could be posting about what, for example, my author Aurora Gregory did. She wrote a book called Get Picked. And so she taught people people who've never got on stage before in their life, how to get picked for public speaking. So she starts from the beginning to the end. So that means that her target audience are people who want to speak as part of their profession but don't know where to begin. This is not going to be an advanced book. It's going to be for beginners. So she would post tips all the time on how to help them. She'd give, hey, like, here's what your proposal, here's a good idea of a proposal template. Try to realize that everything you could talk about regarding your book and what you do and your passions has to come back to value. Value means many different things. If you entertain me with a jaw-dropping crime thriller, that is valuable to me. You have brought entertainment to my life. If you bring value to me because you taught me some things about the prison and death row that I didn't know anything about, wow, I mean, that is valuable. I didn't know all of that. I had no idea. That's why I'm obsessed with documentaries, by the way. Oh, you guys, we don't have time. But I'm obsessed with documentaries, especially crime and thriller stuff. Oh my goodness. But, I mean, those are some things that you can do to provide value. It can be informative, it can be entertaining, it can be even something that is sad provides value because it evokes emotion. And I remember it. Your book and anything that you talk about provides value. All right, so let's finish up with a few more things and we'll take a break. Remember I said Amazon's your best friend? Like, once you've figured out, okay, I think I'm writing young adult. That sounds about right. I think that's what I'm writing. Just start looking up every little young adult novel you can find on Amazon, and you are going to learn so much about your target audience. You're going to start picking up on things. You're like, wow, there really seems to be a trend in these book covers for young adult. There really seems to be a trend in the way that they're written. Did you know that if you were to write let's say new adult romance, so that's going to be for like 19 through 20s. Okay, that's usually the protagonist is like 20, 21, 22. Did you know that most of the book blurbs are going to be written in first person from the heroine's point of view? If it's a new adult romance, like a lot of the times you're going to see the book blurb on the back cover here or the Amazon description, it's going to be in the voice of the heroine. In fact, I might have one. Yep. Waiting for Wyatt starts out that way. This is new adult romance. S.D. Hendrickson is based in Tulsa. And she starts with, I met Charlie and Wyatt on the same sultry summer day. It was unexpected, leaving a feeling in the pit of my stomach. That's first person from the heroine's point of view. So, do your research. Figure out, like, what are these people doing that I need to know about? If they have tons and tons of amazing reviews, they're doing something right. So you might want to bookmark them and figure out how you can apply it to your marketing. Now, we do all this stuff, okay? We kind of start making a profile. We start figuring out our niche because eventually, during the self-publishing process, did you know you have to market your book? Someone's got to do it, right? So if you spend time in the very beginning while your editor's working hard, collecting some information, man, when it's time to like figure out your cover and your book blurb and maybe the book bloggers you want to contact and this and this and this and this, you already have it done. You already know. In fact, you can already figure out how much to charge for your book. We'll talk about how to price your book for Amazon in a little bit, but this market research will just save you so much frustration. All right, let's go ahead and take a little 5-minute break real quick. You guys are welcome to use the bathroom or get something to drink, and then we'll switch gears to social media. So feel free to take a break. If you want, you guys are welcome to come and look at some of these books. Every single book that I've brought has been self-published. So, I mean, there are plenty in here for you to dig through. Sherry, I was going to show you, these are the two that are... So he was in federal prison for about 16 years for just about anything to do with money that you can think of. So this is his story. It's got a lot of humor. He's very sarcastic. So it starts off with how he got busted in the first place, and then it takes you into the federal prison, and he's in a prison camp too. This one, he was in there for about 5 years. Federal prison. He was dishonorably discharged, and he was also selling drugs, and so he wound up in federal prison. And both of these men wound up completely and utterly changing their lives, and I've learned a lot from them. They're great men. But that way you can just kind of take a look at it and kind of get an idea of what, and they're both memoirs. They are not leadership or self-help. They're both memoirs. So you can kind of play around and look at the idea of what yours might look like. I am going to restock on my water. You guys will notice me doing that often. But see, you can't restock on your coffee now. I mean, now what are you going to do? Are you going to be okay? Do I need to call Starbucks and tell them get over your step?
You can just get on
paper.
paper.
I don't know if they're having anything in there, but.
What's your favorite thing to get there?
It depends. I actually like making my own coffee more.
Yeah?
I just have perfected it over the years.
I love a white mocha.
Yeah,
That's kind of my go-to.
I don't know. I kind of, when it's chilly outside, I like a cold drink. I don't know why.
No, it's like,
it
is ice cream not the best to eat when it's freezing
cold.
outside?
Yeah.
That is the best time.
That's why I
Iced
got an
coffee,
ice
I'm the
drink.
same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, we're smart people. We know what the other people
The
don't.
weird one.
No, that's the best time
Like
right
that
there.
winter and iced
Yeah.
coffee. I'm like,
You're like, yeah.
Because it doesn't
I
melt
love
and
this
get all
spark one. I
gross.
think I want a
You know what I'm talking about?
frappuccino. Yeah.
Oh,
Like
you
I
get a
worked with
frappuccino in the
Bucket
summer in
Made,
Texas or Oklahoma and it's melted before you bring it to your lips. Man, we're so smart, you guys. Those other people, they don't know what they're doing.
Do you think Goodreads is a good source for? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
Okay.
Love
For
Goodreads.
research, because I used to be not active in getting reviews, but active in like really tracking everything I read and what I wanted to read.
Oh, I love it. I do too.
I
love it.
I don't anymore, but I know that there's just so much information.
I mean,
so
it
many
is
reviews and stuff on there.
The social media platform for readers.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I love it.
Oh, and I mean, you can do
think I have that
giveaways.
one.
You can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fantastic. I'm a
I'm
huge
terrible.
fan.
I claimed my author page and I haven't done anything with it, so.
Change that.
For which one?
Hmm? Goodreads.
Goodreads.
yeah, I've reconnect with a lot of friends that way too.
Really?
Yep.
Over books and over.
When we talk about book bloggers, I worked with so many book bloggers straight from Goodreads, but the most is from Instagram. That's where I get the majority of my book bloggers. That's a whole other conversation, guys. You know, the only thing we're missing is just a big old pile of like chocolate chip cookies or something. If I lived here, I would have made some, believe me. I do it for my writers group, and then I got smart and I thought, what if I had the members cook for me, bake for me from now on? So one of them, she brought, oh Lord, homemade, made from scratch brownies, but you know the type where it's almost like a cake brownie? Yeah. And it's like a thick icing, and then she topped them with these caramel pretzel things. Oh boy. It was a little too good.
My writing group meets twice a week, and we meet.
Oh, you do twice a week.
Mm-hmm. And we do
Once a month.
Wednesdays are critique nights.
Yeah.
And so we critique two people's. Actually, mine's due tonight, and I haven't edited it.
You're like, I can write that.
That's what I'll be doing after this. And then, so we're on a rotating schedule of two authors a night, and then Sundays are more like we get together, we edit or write, and Sundays are potlucks, like everybody.
Oh man, that would be so fun.
Oh, it's so fun. It's at somebody's
Now
house.
we do a Christmas dinner party, but we haven't done a potluck yet.
Yeah, it's every week. Everybody brings something, and it's awesome.
See, that would be really fun to do, because we do twice a month. We do, but then we have our conferences 2 times a year, and then we also do write-ins 1 Saturday out of the month. So that's usually in between the workshops, and then you know what's so cool though? I don't know if yours is like this, but in the last 2 years, they have 3 people in particular become my closest friends.
Oh yeah, I know.
My
We had a game
closest
night Friday
friend.
night. There was
Oh,
not
they're at my
writing,
house all
and
the
so we
time.
just drank
All
and played
the
Cards
time.
Against Humanity, and
Oh,
it was
my
great.
Lord.
Yeah.
We went to the lake. My family, they own a house on the lake, and I put my poor aunt and uncle at the table, my mom, and everybody. I was like, we're gonna play a little game. I actually posted pictures of my brother because he looked like he had bit into a lemon. He just was dying.
No, we do. We're doing a writing camp. We've rented a house this summer, and so for 5 days we're gonna go, and we're just gonna.
That'll be
write
so
all
fun.
together.
This is your writing group?
It's one I found just recently, and I feel like I've known these people forever. They've been going for a couple of years. We've all met through NaNoWriMo, because we have if y'all don't know about
we became a NaNoWriMo official write-in thing.
and so a couple of the MLs for the DFW Rhinos ran it, and so it's small, because if it gets too big, it's just too hard to critique. But there's about 14 of us, and 13 or 14. And it's just awesome.
Oh, I love
Monthly
it.
game nights and events, and we're having a day. We're gonna all go to
There's
Scarborough
a
Fair
card
together.
game called Never Have I Ever.
Yeah.
I have that one. That one is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Absolutely
And
hilarious.
these are all just super
Writing
nerdy.
group.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
So there's Dallas area writers group.
Mhm.
There's a writer.
Art House Dallas has a whole list of them, and
Yeah.
that's who sponsors these.
And we're it's called Word. It's what Tex Thompson does.
Yeah.
Writers around Dallas.
Writer organizations.
Thank you,
around
writer
Dallas.
organizations
Yeah.
around Dallas. Yeah, she has.
Well,
You
we
guys
have-
are
And you're
very.
teaching at Wordfest.
I am,
Right, I saw you on
yes.
the schedule.
Yes, I am. You guys are so fortunate because every time I speak, if it's not at the Yukon Writers Society, it's at Dallas or the outskirts because Oklahoma does not have a lot of options. We have the OWFI, but I'm not the world's greatest fan in how it's run, and so there's just
And
really
then,
not a
if
lot
you
of
get on-
options.
Even just get on Meetup.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's where we existed
I just
originally.
discovered that.
Yes.
And if you can't find one that you like, then start one, and you'd be surprised who'll show up.
Oh.
So, 'cause
Ready
it
for a
is-
resource? I'm gonna give you guys a resource because I have had so many people ask me, okay, I don't have a writers group. What do I do? How do I start one? I'm gonna give you guys the link in just a second. It's gonna be on my blog, but it's a very short, easy to remember link. I teach everybody on this blog post how to start a local writing group. So it's ShaylaRaquel.com/blog writers group how-to, one word. ShaylaRaquel.com/blog/writers group how-to. So I walk you guys through the whole thing, everything you need to know about starting a writers group. It's just so fun. But hopefully you guys can find one that you could join on your own. If not, just start one, get it going. It's so fun. Okay guys, let's go ahead and jump back into our lesson. We're going to talk about social media. Now remember, you are still in the editing process, most likely. You have done some copywriting. You've been kind of doing a little bit of market research, trying to figure out what is my genre, who's reading this book, etc., etc. Maybe even by now your editor's sent back the rewrites. And maybe that's what's going on, and you're like, you know what would really work out right now? A distraction. So I'm going to go set up social media. So before I even get into all this, does anybody in here have a Facebook page, not a profile? So you have a Facebook page. Sherry, do you have a page yet? Okay, and you guys are brand new to this world. Awesome. Okay, so why would you need a Facebook author page? That is such a big, deep thing that I teach classes on that as well. Thankfully, they're only an hour-ish long. I'll just go through really quickly. A Facebook author page, you can hit the like button and you can see all their stuff. If you don't have one, you cannot run Facebook ads, which, oh my goodness, that is such a wonderful way to sell your book. You can only have 5,000 friends. It stops. After that, it's done with liking a page. I mean, hey, the sky's the limit. Did you know that you are not allowed to use your public profile as a business, which technically this is a business, is it not? You're making money, so you're actually not allowed to do it that way. Many people don't realize that, and so they use their public profile on Facebook to talk kind of treat it just like they would a Facebook author page. If Facebook wanted to, they could just shut the whole thing down, and Facebook would never do that, right? Right? Also, how many of you want to be friends with every single person who reads your writing? I most assuredly do not. Now, thankfully, I'm so fortunate to meet amazing, amazing people, and I am pretty quick to be friends with them. But in this day and age, you do have to be careful, and so it makes sense to have them just like your page. There are many more reasons to have a Facebook author page, but that is kind of one of the first things that you might want to consider setting up. Before we get into which one and why and all that, I want you guys to understand something. Social media is your lifeline to your readers. Well, I mean, my book, I haven't even started a book yet. Perfect. That gives you plenty of time to build your Facebook author page, to build your presence on whatever platform you want. I don't know if you've ever heard a marketer say this or not, but they'll, you need to be on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Tumblr, and you just sit there and you go, but when do I write? Do not do that. Pick one or two that you really, really like and stick to that. Twitter is fun. Twitter is really short and sweet, and it's really very newsworthy. I mean, if there is news on Facebook, it was already on Twitter like several hours ago. But not everybody likes Twitter. Oh, but I feel like I have to be on there because this marketer said I need to be. No, you need to do what you like. Because let's say that I didn't like Twitter at all, right? Some marketer told me I needed to be on there to promote my book and my author brand. Do you really think I'm going to stick to using it if I hated it? No, and that doesn't even make any sense. And so you guys can sometimes get some really poor advice because you're told, like, you gotta be everywhere, you gotta be everywhere. No, just be in a couple of places and kill it. Like, make that your strength. Really do a good job. How can you do a great job if you're on every single platform? You'll only give a little to each thing. I will tell you my personal favorites. I love my Facebook author page, and I love Instagram. I'm a huge fan of Instagram, but not everybody loves it, and that's okay. So I might tell them, have you considered really spending the majority of your time focusing on Goodreads, LinkedIn, because maybe you're a business professional. You remember we talked all the time about market research? That's why that matters, because now when you're thinking about the social media aspect, you can decide, like, where are my readers, where are they? A lot of millennials are going to be on Instagram, and so if your book might be more so targeted to them, then great. By the way, there are 1 billion with a B active users on Instagram. over 2 billion with a B active on Facebook. And that makes sense because Facebook owns Instagram. But I mean, think of the opportunities there. So we are going to talk about social media and how you use it in the self-publishing process and marketing and building your author brand. I have how-tos for just about everything at this point. I have a very detailed blog post I'll give you guys. Remember I said I'd give you guys some resources at the end. I have a very detailed blog post on creating a Facebook author page. In fact, I have how-to videos on that blog, the whole 9 yards, because I just had so many people asking me, where do I begin and how do I take it to the next level? So I will answer questions about that in a second. Remember earlier, Jessica, you gave us a Facebook group that we should join. Man, you guys, Facebook groups are great. I have learned I run a couple of my own, but Facebook groups, think about it. You get to network with people who write in your genre, who know the self-pub industry, and they're just so generous. Like, people can be, I know humanity sometimes makes me shake my head, but there really are generous people out there who are willing to give up their time and help you guys out. So if you're active in groups like that, and yes, I'm happy to give you a list, man, what a difference that makes. You don't feel so alone. You feel like, you know what? I don't know how to set up Kindle Select. How do I do that? I'll just run over here to this group real quick. Hey guys, do you have a how-to for that? Oh, yeah, boom, here it is. Man, that is so nice to have. If you want, you could create a Twitter account as your author name. Remember that anything you create with social media should be your author name. Okay, try to keep everything as consistent as you can. What if somebody already has my name? That's okay. You can tweak it a little bit. Nothing wrong with showing an underscore in there. Nothing wrong with maybe adding a middle initial. I was fortunate enough that my parents were so back and forth on what to name me that they just got frustrated and gave me 2 middle names. So I can choose between 2 if I want. One thing, don't overthink it. Don't overstress. Just try to keep things as simple as you can. Creating an Instagram account, I have many how-tos for that, and in fact, one of my most popular blog posts about Instagram was not written by me. It was written by a wonderful self-published author named Melissa Frey.
You know Melissa?
You do too?
Yes!
I told you, what did I say? Small world. She's great. And
yeah, we
she
were in the
is-
same freelance writing.
Tell her I said hello.
I will, yeah. I've never met her in real life, but we were...
Me
we
neither.
did- yeah, Working Handbook for freelance writers
I'm friends with
together.
Gina as well.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So
Gina's really great. She does the virtual assistant thing and the copywriting. She's great too. I told you, very small pool of people. That's why when it's time to look for an editor or graphic designer or whatever, ask the person your art, ask other authors, because we already know. We're saving you so much time. So Melissa wrote this beautiful blog post, how to market your book on Instagram without a book yet. And it actually has been one of my most popular blog posts. Jane Friedman, the love of my life, she is a publishing powerhouse. She featured it in the hot sheet, which goes out to Lord knows how many subscribers, because it was just so well written. So we'll give you all those links later, don't worry. But what's the big deal about Instagram anyway? Have you guys ever seen the hashtag Bookstagram by any chance? Oh my. So, well, we can even look at it real quick if you want. Bookstagram, what in the world does that mean? Well, it means that it's somebody who loves books and they love to take pictures of their books and show them off on their Instagram account. But the really cool thing is that they certainly love to review those books as well and promote them and talk about them and get their fans super excited. So when we talk about book bloggers, that's kind of one of the cool little cheats I use, is hashtag Bookstagram. So when I do that, I'll see the top post here. These people are using that hashtag every single time they post a photo, right? And so they're talking about these books, they're reviewing them, they're promoting them, they're tagging the author, they like these books, okay? That's why they're talking about them. They're saying, you need to go read this. When you have no platform, you're just getting started, you're really working hard, wouldn't it be smart to borrow somebody else's platform, borrow their visibility? And so Bookstagrammers are a really wonderful way of doing that. They take don't they take pretty photos of those books and they'll use there's tons of other hashtags, but they'll do that, and then they'll this person's reading a book and eating what it looks like ice cream. So all she did is she took that picture there of what she's reading, and then she's probably gonna talk about it or review it or whatever. That would be really nice for them to do that for your stuff too, wouldn't it? And yes, that was actually one of my biggest marketing strategies for the Suicide Tree, was getting as many people as I could on Instagram to talk about it and take pictures of of my book. And man, it's just so fun to see pictures of your book like that. Well, what if I decide not to do print? That's okay. I'll take a Kindle or an ebook and get the cover on it, and then set it down and do my cute little coffee thing, whatever, and then take a picture of that. But they're used to doing that stuff too. That's down the road. But Bookstagram is like, I mean, this huge community of readers, and I mean huge, loyal community of readers who want to show off your book. Remember earlier I said I was a book blogger? So what that means is that traditional publishing companies and self-publishers alike will send me their book if I request it, or sometimes if I didn't request it at all, and they'll send it to me for free in print, and they'll ask me to review it. I love to read anything crime, anything thriller. I mean, you and we got some stuff to talk about. I'm obsessed. I love it, and so I'll request them, and they'll send it to me. And then from there, it's my job. I got it for free, right? So it's my job to provide an honest review, which I do. But I always take a picture of it and make it look really cute, shove a dog in there with a picture or something, and I review it on Goodreads and Amazon and Instagram and Facebook. And that's fun for me. Like, I love reading. I'm an avid reader before I am anything else. So that's really fun for me. So when we get to the book blogger part, start thinking about that. Maybe you're on Instagram, maybe you're on Twitter, or maybe you're on Facebook, and you're like, this person reviews books. I should build a relationship with them so that a year from now, 2 years from now, when my book is out, I can come to that person and it won't be like a cold call. You know what I'm talking about? The version of an email where, and sometimes, I'm not saying that that's wrong, but man, it's a lot easier to get a yes from someone to review your book when they know you. They're like, I've been watching you work on this forever. You've been posting about it for a year. I'm so excited. Yes, of course I'll review it. Get it here now. That's fun. Like, that's such a fun part of being an author, is having these book ambassadors, loyal readers who fangirl over your book and tell the world about it. That, to me, will always beat anything I could ever do in the writing world. If I got a New York Times bestseller list, cool, that's amazing. That's like the coolest thing in the world. Except, man, I love it when readers just love my book and they just want to tell the world about it. That is so cool, because that's what I'm doing, right? I'm writing it for them, not for anyone else. I want them to love my book. All right, so let's head back into this real quick, back to the social media aspect of things, and then we'll pause to answer some questions. You'd asked me about Goodreads. I love Goodreads. Is there anyone who doesn't have a Goodreads account right now? It's okay. All right. So Goodreads, imagine a social media platform built by and solely for readers. So what I love to do is every time that I'm reading a book, whatever book I think I'm reading The Word is Murder right now. The Word is Murder. So I'm reading that right now, and what I do is it is a social media platform, and I say, I find the book on there, and then I say, this is what I'm reading, or whatever, this is what I've read. Now, reviews can go on there. So I know it's kind of small, but like, I just finished The Cabin at the End of the World. I read that book. When I was reading it, people could see my update, and it would say, like, Shayla's 57% through with this book. Then when I was done with it, of course I would take a picture or two of it, but when I was done with it, then I wrote my review. Why does that matter? Like, why do I need, as an author, why do I need a review on Goodreads versus Amazon? Well, some authors are a little shady in how they get Amazon reviews. It is against the rules to pay someone for a review. Authors do it, and Amazon has really cracked down on that stuff, but it happens. So people feel more like with Goodreads a lot of the times. In fact, there's kind of a funny chart that describes the difference between a 1-star Goodreads review and a 1-star Amazon review. They do feel like Goodreads is way more honest in their reviews than Amazon, but also because, man, like, how cool to have that type of platform. It's free. There's always options to do giveaways and cool stuff. I have found book bloggers on there many, many times. What that means is that I saw somebody reviewing a book that was very similar to the genre or scope of my author's book who needed reviews. And I would build a relationship with them and then contact them and be like, hey, Mark, like, do you want to read another crime thriller book? My author has one called The Puppet Master. Would you be, oh, yeah, send it my way. Yeah, I want to read it. I'll review it. you know, it's a lot easier to get people to say yes to reviewing your book when they've built a relationship with you. But I will say, possibly the most difficult thing authors ever face, aside from that pesky book blurb, is getting reviews. It is hard. It really is. Thankfully, there's people like book bloggers who do make it easier for us. Then there's always Pinterest and LinkedIn and Tumblr. Again, if you're writing, I don't know, like if you're writing a children's book, I mean, LinkedIn probably isn't going to be for you. But if you're like a CEO of a company who's writing this leadership book, you might want to be on there. If you're writing a cookbook like my client Jessica Ward, you might want to be active on Pinterest. Remember we did that market research earlier? Man, you just keep coming back to it because it helps so much. You think it's going to be boring, and not everybody sits down excited to do it, but it saves them so much hair pulling. Let's pause. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about social media and the questions I can answer for you and how it plays a part in self-publishing. You got to get the word out somehow, right? You know, you are solely in charge of marketing your book. So once it's out there and it's self-published, and even before it's self-published, I mean, there's got to be some lifeline to these readers, and there's got to be a way to communicate with them. So let's talk a little bit about the way that, you know, the particular genres you guys have and what you might be most comfortable with. So, Crystal, I'll start with you. What social media platforms do you have?
Technically, I have a Facebook page. I don't remember the last time I updated it.
Okay.
I'm really active on Instagram
Excellent.
for writing. That's my
And your
public
fantasy.
persona. Yes.
Excellent.
So I do a lot of the monthly challenges.
Those are so fun.
They're so fun.
Yes. A monthly challenge, so that you don't know, like there'll be a little photo that goes around and it'll say like October photo challenge, and every day in the month of October you have a hashtag, or you're supposed to take a picture of something different each day, and then other people get on board with it, and it increases your visibility of your photos and profiles.
So I've been doing Fantasy Whip February this month, and so asked me, how do you imagine your main character's voice? And so you get to,
that's cool.
you get to
That's
do
cool.
fun things, and so I pretty much, my Instagram is almost entirely writing oriented and my dogs.
Oh my goodness, that's about right. It's about mine.
And occasionally I'll throw in a little like extra personal life stuff, but I try to keep that pretty public persona. Because I ran into the people friending me with my freelancing, like, oh, I read your article, we should be Facebook friends.
I always redirect them.
Yeah,
I'll just say like, thank you. Why don't you go like my Facebook page?
Yeah.
Or thank you. You can follow
So
my public
I actually
Instagram account.
took my last name off of my personal Facebook
Yeah,
account.
my last name is not anywhere
Yeah.
online.
So,
I mean, it probably is somewhere, but not anywhere on social media. Not on.
So I haven't been found. Since I removed it.
But your strength is Instagram.
Yes,
That's
my
what you
strength is
enjoy.
Instagram.
Okay, good. So then keep working on that strength. Keep building your profile.
I made a list. I did some research on the top book and writing hashtags and
Excellent.
followers. I keep a list of that in my
I do
planner. And so I rotate through. You know, I try to do like the 30 because I still have.
I
very low
always do
followers.
30
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. In
So-
fact, we'll show them an example of what you're talking about. So we'll do mine as a fast example. That way you guys can put to practice what we're doing here. All right, so this is my Instagram account, right? So it is going to be books, okay, and it's gonna be my little babies and all sorts. I mean, that is my life is books. That's what I do for a living. So that's gonna be what my Instagram will look like. So she's saying, you know, I use 30 hashtags. I do too. So for this one, like you see that I have, of course, the photo and I have a description here, but what is all this? There are 30 hashtags here. Now you can see they're all about books. If I did that garbage on Twitter, I would have like 20 unfollowers so fast. It's funny because isn't that where the hashtag originated?
Mm-hmm.
And yet hardly anyone uses hashtags on Twitter anymore. Facebook tried to make it happen, but it just didn't work. Instagram was like, oh, this is going to be our thing. So now people use hashtags on Instagram to find each other. Remember I typed in hashtag Bookstagram earlier? well, then I just found all those other people using it. So then I can go follow them and get to know them and various things.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is that just like you can follow accounts on Instagram, you can follow
Correct.
hashtags.
That is correct.
So you click on the hashtag and then you'll hit the follow button, and then that's how you discover.
Or
other
even the
people.
location now,
Yeah.
right? Mhm.
Yeah, and the location, and then you can follow those interests instead of just following individual accounts. And
Yeah.
so, and since I started putting my hashtags in my first comment, I've been gaining
yes.
about 7 to 10 followers a day, which
You
is
will.
pretty good.
That is excellent.
So,
Congratulations.
um,
So you are using Instagram as a way to build your author brand and market your book and help people get to know about you. I mean, there's so many things that wouldn't it be great if I just published my book and everybody found it? It's just never going to happen. I have to be alive and thriving in the online world. Things are so different now than they used to be. I mean, you published a book and you went to the bookstore and then you bought it and that was that. No, like I have to work hard every day to get my book out there, to get this out there and all that. It is a hard job, but always remember, don't kill yourself over it. You still have to be a writer too, okay? So you have to find a way to balance it. That's why I say, like, you do not need to be on a million different platforms. Pick something you like and stick to it. Okay, so Keith, what are you thinking about social media wise? Like, what interests you out of all of them?
Mine would be Instagram and Facebook. That's what I do now.
Cool.
And I have a Goodreads account too. So
Awesome. So do you have are you going to use your own name as your author name, or are you creating a pen name, or like, have you decided yet?
that's funny. I'm still trying to decide.
Okay,
that.
that's fine. So once you decide it, make sure that it's consistent throughout and make sure it says that. Remember, let's go sneak a peek at Melissa Frey real quick. We were just talking about her a second ago.
she's the best at Instagram.
Yeah, she really is. She's awesome at it. So here's Melissa. Let's go see what she's been up to. So Melissa, she's like right there. See, her book is at the bottom. That's her book. The Secret of the Codex is at the bottom there. But then, she uses her little hashtags. She's giving you a little recipe. She's got a location tag. You can see there. She's got Michigan tag. Why in the world does she do that? That's like a whole other way for people to see you. But why? Why does this have to do with self-publishing? Because you're building your author brand so that you can sell books for the rest of your life. I have so many people authors, they get so hung up on release date, and then that's it. And then they don't market themselves anymore. They don't do anything. This is the long game. I'm in this for the long haul. I want people to follow me and keep up with me and me with them forever. That way, when the next book comes out, the next, they're pre-ordering it so fast I can't keep up with it, right? That's what matters. And so you do that through your Lifeline, which is social media. All right, so let's head on back here and get back on track with everything. Let's see. Okay. All right, so any other questions about social media before we move on to just a quick word on author branding? Do you guys have questions about that? I know it seems a long ways away, but I want you guys to go ahead and start doing it, like now. What? Like no one's even read my writing. I know. That's why you can use this opportunity as showcasing, you're documenting this process of becoming an author rather than trying to come up with all this fresh content. Like, oh, I need to come up with a blog post and this and this and this. And it's too overwhelming. What you can do instead is document your road to finishing your book and getting it self-published. That is fascinating to us. We think, oh no, my life is too boring, no one's gonna care. Look, reality TV still exists and is doing just fine, so we've proven that we are very fascinated by other people's lives. So talk about that stuff, document it, I wanna see your writing space, I wanna know what you're up to, I wanna hear what the first line of your book is, I wanna know what you've been researching. I said I love documentaries. I was really stuck on this plot hole in the suicide tree. And I decided to watch a documentary. It was called like the Deep Web, And oh my goodness, it was so fantastic that it fixed, I wound up coming up with a fix to my plot hole because of it. So I talked about that on social media and in my newsletter. What? You mean watching Netflix will actually aid? Well, a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't overdo it, but it might help a little bit. Okay, so let's talk. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yes, no, this is it. We interact.
So I do, for the company I work for now and the company I worked for before, I do our social media, so I understand like the science behind it and how to
Sure.
get better metrics and all these things. But
Great.
my question is, one of my favorite things to see authors that I follow on social media post, or poets on Pinterest or wherever, are
Yes.
little quotes from their books.
Love that.
But if you're not published yet, is it not smart to put that out?
I get that question so often. So what would be really dumb is to write a 50,000 word novel and just like shove that baby out there on Facebook, or like if you admin a Facebook group and I attach it as a file, and come on, you're just asking for it. But what if I just have little lines here and there? There is not a thing wrong with that. What you can do, if you want, you can, if you're creating like a text image, you know what I'm talking about? If you want, you can, if you own a logo, which you can get for like no money at all on Etsy, you can shove that in the corner. If you don't do that, then do @ for me, it'll be @ Shayla Raquel, okay? You can do something like that. I'm not saying it's gonna like save everything, but always remember that anything in the world can happen. Did you know that once your book is published, whether you're traditionally published or self-published, if I were really, really, really good at it, I could go pirate that bad boy and I could go distribute it throughout the web. I could if I knew how. So you're never like officially 100% safe, but I did find that when I would put little excerpts of my book out there, like especially between the two love interests, Knox and Jessa, it really made them connect, and they would go so crazy. Like, I can't wait to read this book. And it was just enough. Like, it was just a little bit to drive them crazy.
Yeah.
They loved that stuff. And I never felt, maybe I should have been, but I never felt like, oh, they're going to steal this. Worse things have happened. So what you could do is if you create a text image, just make sure that you have the author name on there. Great question. Authenticity has nothing to do with how much you share. How many of you have been told like, oh, you need to be posting on Facebook every day, and you just look, guys, I don't have time for that. And actually, we have found through Buffer, which is a fantastic social media tool, that the less you post on, say, Facebook, for example, the higher your engagement is. We used to be told, like with marketing yourself on a Facebook page, you need to be posting 3 times a day. If somebody now were doing, I would be like, you are posting too much, go away. That would drive me nuts. Now we have higher engagement the less that you post. So it's nothing to do with that. Authenticity is about what you share. Being authentic means staying true to who you are as a person, writer, or company. This quote has been on every single thing I have ever done regarding marketing because it's so important. I need to fall in love with you, okay? If I am online and I'm following you on Facebook, I'm reading your blog, I'm listening to an interview, I don't even know about your book yet. Chances are, it might be really nice if I fall in love with who you are as a person. You guys, we have all been around someone who's really, really fake, okay? And I don't mean necessarily physically, I mean just their personality, and you're like, that's not who they really are, and you don't like it. You see it online. Too. It exists and you feel it and you're like, that doesn't seem very real. It doesn't seem very authentic. You can tell when someone's marketing to you. Just be yourself. When you are on social media, when you're writing your book, when you're doing a video, when everything in the world that you do online, just be yourself. If that means that you are going to be geeking out over Star Trek, then do that. If that means that you have 3 dogs and they're sitting in your lap while you're trying to work, that's fine too. Be real, be realistic. So, I have 2 words tattooed on your forehead, I don't care. Know thyself. When you are marketing your book, when you are getting your book out there, when you're figuring all this stuff out on the publishing path, know thyself. So, what is your author brand all about? I know that my thing is all about helping authors. Like, that is my #1 goal. It's about producing quality. I'm really big on quality. My brand is about being fun and just entertaining and silly and all of those things. That's just who I am. What you see right here is the same that you're going to see online, and the same as if you're in my house drinking a cup of coffee with me, and that's how it should be. Who are you really? What is it about you that makes me want to hear from you every day? The things that you guys have that are like deep passions, like my obsession with the JFK assassination, has zero to do with my book, but a whole lot to do with who I am, because it fascinates me and I like to talk about it. And I like to share those types of things so people relate to that. And they go, oh, I want to talk about that too. And you've been involved in those conversations before as well, I'm sure. Don't be afraid to talk about the stuff you guys are passionate about, even if it has nothing to do with your book. And you should do that, because it's going to get really old. Check out my book. Have you checked out my book yet? Please buy my book. Nobody wants that. So don't be that way. Talk about the things you love, the things that, inspire you, and people will fall in love with you and they'll buy your grocery list, okay? If it were something you could purchase. They'll read it. They will, because they like you. All right, let's go ahead and move on to your email list. Now again, this is something that not everybody has to do. I teach a class on this as well, because it can get pretty in-depth. It does play a very significant role in publishing your book and getting sales. How many of you have been on an email list before? And maybe it started out good, maybe you signed up to get a freebie, something, and before you know it, oh my word, it's just every email is sell, 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 buy my course, buy my this, buy my that, and you can't get to the unsubscribe button fast enough. You get really frustrated. Well, that person put their greed above value, didn't they? That's what they did, and it made you hate that email newsletter. Now, is anybody subscribed to any newsletters that they really like because they feel like they're helping me somehow, they're entertaining me, they're informing me? Is anybody on any newsletters they really like that you could share? What you got? What are some that you really enjoy?
There's one that I get every Friday. It's called Girls Night In.
Girls Night In.
They have a book club, but it's all about just the subset of people that, women specifically, that like to stay in instead of going out.
Yeah.
So it's always about, how to make an all-natural face mask, how to do this
So it's
type of
perfect for
bath,
you. You love it.
Yeah, and then they have a book club with meetups in different places.
That's
but all
awesome.
of the reader, not all
See,
of them.
they put the reader first.
Yes.
That's what they did. They put the reader first. I love Jane Friedman's emails. Blake Atwood, oh man, he has a great email newsletter. There's some that, Writer's Digest, sometimes they get a little crazy, so I have to subscribe to just the ones I want, but their articles are wonderful. Read C has wonderful email newsletters because they're just providing so much value. And then you're like, Shayla, what value do I have to offer? It's there, okay? It's there, I promise. Have you ever thought that, maybe sometimes people just need to know that you're researching your novel right now and here's what you learned. Or here's what inspired me to write my novel, and that's your newsletter for that day. Here's just in here, you have so many opportunities alone with that email newsletter. I've researched, the percentage of death row inmates and especially with false confessions. That's always really interested me. How many people are on death row who had a false confession or were taken? You have so many opportunities there alone to not only educate people, but to encourage and motivate them to learn some stuff. Don't just take everything you read as truth. You have many.
This is a hot topic right now.
A very, very hot topic, especially with, again, those documentaries. We just.
Man and John Grisham.
Oh, that was so fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely,
I
unbelievably good.
actually got his book because the thing I was having the hardest time with is my courtroom scenes.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
watched.
he's a genius at it.
And so I watched The Innocent Man and scanned his book.
Yeah.
Because I thought, if I'm going to learn how to do courtroom scenes,
He's the one
who
I'd
else?
pick.
So I did, and
And
I
he's
went back and
self-published, by the way.
Yeah.
His very first book, he sold it out of the trunk of his car. He had a print run of, I want to say, 3,000 to 5,000 copies, and it was A Time to Kill.
Yeah.
Self-published
Made
that
into a
originally.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
But,
by
yeah.
the way, I can keep you guys really big. Okay, just for fun. I'll do a few really, really quick. Lisa Genova, who wrote Still Alice. Who was it that starred in oh, that's right, Julianne Moore starred in that movie. That book was originally self-published, and then it was picked up, and then the movie deal. Of course, we know The Martian, that was self-published. She's always a really good example. Did you know that people like E.E. Cummings, the poet, self-published? I mean, there are so many people out there who self-published. And
Tolstoy. I learned that yesterday.
did he really?
Yes, and
I did not know that.
Then when he got sick, his wife took over and did all of his, and she like traveled to meet with Anna Dostoevsky, did all of the like marketing and publishing for Dostoevsky.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I learned that yesterday. I thought it was really interesting.
I mean, it's amazing to know. And then there's some who just they've been offered traditional publishing deals and they don't want to take it. All right, so let's talk about our email newsletter briefly before we start heading into Amazon and all that fun stuff, because I don't want you guys to feel like you have to have it. You don't. But man, it sure has made a difference for me. I will say that. And I have learned a lot about the do's and don'ts. So let's say you have a website, okay? Or let's say you're doing this, you're doing that, whatever. If you have an email newsletter, you get to have people on your turf. I don't know what Facebook's going to do. What if they did just shut down my Facebook page one day? What if this, and then I lose all that. I mean, that's a horrible thing to think about, but at least if I have an email newsletter, I've got all those subscribers on my turf. How do I even get them on there in the first place? Well, I have an option for people to subscribe to my newsletter all over my website. It's on social media, but why? Like, how do I get them to do it? Well, I have an incentive. I have the freebie. Remember earlier I said the pre-publishing checklist was something that I put out there for free. So the second somebody subscribes to my email list, even if it's in the middle of the night, they just automatically get an email, and it's through MailChimp, which is free. There are paid options, but I started with the free one for like 2 years. Why in the world, like, what's the big deal with it? Like, why, what would I talk about? What would I write about? Fine, I give them a freebie, and I'll give you some examples of freebies in a second. But then what? Like, what is this newsletter supposed to be about? I don't even have the book out yet. Well, first of all, what do you love sharing with other people? I don't know what y'all's hobbies are or anything, but I mean, what are some things that you could share with them that you love to talk about? Are you a collector of anything? Are you skilled in a certain type of profession? Is there anything that maybe it could somehow come back to what your book is about? Anything of that nature? What do you love sharing? What about, what do people ask you about all the time? Obviously, I get asked a lot about writing and publishing and stuff, but for you guys it might be totally different. With crime and thrillers, there is a whole lot of research that goes into that, depending on which route you take, whether you have a detective as your protagonist, or if you have a court scene, like Sherry, or if you have, depending on what the antagonist does. Okay, I'm going to Google some really weird stuff. I mean, have you seen those memes about writers? Like, I swear I'm not a serial killer, I'm a writer. And my favorite one, and this photo exists somewhere, I was working for a doctor, and I had to check spellings on a bunch of prescription drugs. And so I would Google them, and I started laughing so hard because my whole search history was like Adderall, the Xanax, and then the whole thing. And I just thought, somebody saw that. I mean, it's so funny to think of the weird research we do as writers. Talk about that stuff. It's really interesting to see how.
How's the best way to kill someone without leaving blood?
Oh,
Right.
exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. And no bruises here either. Okay, that doesn't kind of. Yeah. I mean, I'll share one. So like, I had to figure out if you stab somebody in the neck, like does it actually go like that? Does it spurt? Like what happens? How quickly do they die? And here I am, and of course it's always like midnight, and your hair's up everywhere, and and you're Googling this, and you're just like, I hope no one ever sees my search history. But that stuff can be really hilarious and interesting to share in your newsletter. What about if you had to travel to come up with some of this stuff? What if you're writing high fantasy and your world doesn't exist? Cool. How did you come up with it? Tell me that. Like, did you, maybe you read a certain type of book that inspired it? Talk about those things. What about, its conception? And I mean, guys, there's so many opportunities. Yes, Heath.
So, just for clarity's sake, you're writing these things and you're visiting these once a week, a month.
You can
whatever
send once
you
a
wanna do.
week, once a month,
Right.
bi-weekly, whatever you want.
So all this banter back and forth through your description of your day and your search history. Now, is that the same thing you're putting on your website? How do
No.
you distinguish what
So I
goes
believe
where?
that as an email address is pretty coveted nowadays, right? So if I'm going to give it to you and I'm going to get that freebie, cool, that's great. But now you got to keep me as a subscriber. How are you going to do that? Well, by providing value, which we've established can be entertaining, informative, encouraging, inspiring. One of the most annoying things is subscribing to a newsletter only to get like the copy and paste of a blog post that was already on the website. Why? Well, I mean, cool, give me a link to go read it, maybe feature it in the newsletter, but treat me like a VIP. I mean, I gave you my email address here. Treat me as a VIP. I will tell you what I like to do. And I mean, all my authors are different. We all do all sorts of different things. But one of my favorite things to do is to start out with some type of encouragement. I like to, tell them about something I learned. I like to tell them about something that I'm going through. It could be writer's procrastination. It could be a bump in the, maybe I'm having difficulty with Amazon reviews and I'm telling you my experience. Maybe I'm telling you about like, hey, so I've been doing this research here and I learned da-da-da-da-da. What are some of the coolest things you've learned while researching for your book? Or maybe, like one time, I interviewed Sarah Denzel. She wrote Silent Child. She's a self-published thriller author, and she sold 1 million books as of last year. So I thought, man, that's so cool. And by the way, I had reviewed her book earlier that year, and so she already, by the time I came and asked her and said, Sarah, congrats on selling 1 million books. Can I interview you for my newsletter? It is not a blog post. That interview was only in my newsletter. Remember, I treated my subscribers like a VIP. Well, it really wasn't like a cold call email to ask Sarah, because I had said like, hey, remember I reviewed your book earlier this year on Amazon and Goodreads, and I had taken pictures of her book, and so, but yes, of course, yeah, I'll do the interview, absolutely, because I helped her, didn't I? Like, I gave of my time to her. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at what is an actual email newsletter going to look like. Everybody does it differently. You don't have to do it the same way I do, but I would at least like to give you a quick idea of what yours could potentially look like. Like I said, I do like to start out with some type of, I don't know, like some advice, some encouragement, something like that. I like to talk about what I'm reading. I like to feature a blog post. So you can see here, the first thing I do is I give them, okay, so this is something I was dealing with. I went and, okay, so again, pulling from real life. I went, those like paint and wine things? Oh, you guys, I was the last person there and they were locking the door. And I kept, just more time. I just wanted more time. So my friend Gary, who's part of the writers group, he comes up to me and he just goes, I'm going to take your paintbrush away now. And I'm like, what? No, don't take that away. I'm an editor, aka I'm a perfectionist. And so he had to physically take it away because this poor lady wanted to leave and I still wanted to work on that painting. And I thought, man, here I am teaching my authors that perfectionism doesn't exist, and yet I'm doing it myself. So that's what I talked about in my newsletter and how it pertains to writing. Then I gave them, just for that, I had written, this was a Facebook post. This was a little Facebook post, the writing rules that I abide by for myself. So I just made it into a little printable. Like, there's nothing wrong with recycling stuff. And then I just, I always have it available for people to read my book whenever they want. That's always available. And then I just tell them about some articles of mine that I've written. If you guys want to blog but you don't have a website, use Medium. It's free. It's awesome. It's really cool. Then I did a book review because I got Sully We Die, which is a thriller. I got that as like a book blogger thing, so I did my review there. And then ended it. And then, that's it, you guys. You can do like a fraction of what I did. But do you see how I just had a story about real life and then I just applied it to writing. That's what I did. And then other times sometimes I've just blasted them with the coolest books that I've been reading lately and I tell them to go check it out on Goodreads. Okay, so let's go ahead and, because I could spend a long time on email newsletters, but I will give you how-tos for that. This list will also be in my how-to blog post for email newsletters, but I mean, there's so many things that you can write about, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of pre-marketing that you're gonna do. Pricing your book. Oh boy. Remember earlier we did the market research, and you kind of start looking for books that are in your genre, and you start seeing kind of like the same types of authors and names, and you start kind of picking up on, oh, okay, I see, this is what's really popular. You can see how much they charge for their books, and you can figure that out. Now, traditionally published books for ebooks are going to be outrageous, and I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. They're charging like $10 for an ebook. Now, in all fairness, I spent 3 years writing my book. I deserve $10 for the ebook, but the reality is people want ebooks cheaper than paperback, so I have to work with what I got. But you can price your book by using Amazon to help you do that. Ebooks are always going to be cheaper than paperback. Your paperback, like for example, it cost me nearly almost $4 to print this, right? So I have to keep in mind that if I'm going to sell this on Amazon, I would like to make a profit. So I don't want to sell this for like $7 because there's like no profit there, right? Because they are going to take a little bit of royalties. So I have to make sure that I price my book in a way, like I think right now it's $18.97 or something on Amazon, the paperback is. I can make it cheaper than that if I want. But you have to understand that you can change the price. Like it's okay. It's not permanent. You can change the price. Another thing you're going to be figuring out while you're getting on this self-publishing path is a launch date. There's going to be a release date. It's whatever you think it should be, tack on an extra week, maybe even 2, just to make sure that you have enough time. And Crystal can probably tell you if something can go wrong, it will. I mean, it just happens. It's just part of the game. And so it does help to have enough time to get everything finalized. I like to see books up for pre-order. You can pre-order an ebook or something. I like to see that ready 4 weeks before the release date at a minimum. If it can be even way more than that, great. But sometimes my authors, they don't have a lot of time. And so they just get it up for pre-order within a few weeks before their release date. You can always offer incentives to people who pre-order your book. There is a way to do it, which I can teach on, via email or something. But, some people do it to where if you pre-order the book and you show that sales receipt from Amazon, then they'll give you a checklist, a case study, the first book in their series. They'll give you the first chapter and then the next book, whatever. You can do that. You're also going to be working on compiling endorsements. So this is going to be a little different than reviews, which you'll also be working on. Endorsements are going to be very important for anything nonfiction. An endorsement, let's see if we can find an example. Peter Shankman, who was a corporate keynote speaker, he's a pretty good guy. He did the endorsement for Get Speaks because they knew him and had worked with him. So he just wrote this short and sweet little blurb that went here. He doesn't have some full-length review that's on Goodreads or whatever. He endorsed the book. Okay, so he put his stamp of approval on it. They chose somebody that was kind of like an influencer in their industry. Endorsements aren't going to be, or praise for the book, aren't going to be probably on your biggest to-do list when it comes to novels. Yes, you can have those on it'll come out right around the title page. So I'll show you. You can absolutely do that. But you'll probably, if you're doing a novel, you're probably going to spend a lot more time trying to get pre-release reviews. So he has reviews here that act as short and sweet little endorsements. Now, you've probably seen things like Kirkus reviews, Publishers Weekly. I'm not the world's biggest fan because you're paying for them. But I know some authors have enjoyed having them. But you can spend some time. You should be building a relationship with those bookstagrammers, or maybe you found a book blogger on Goodreads, or whatever it may be. Like, create an Excel sheet or a Google Doc or something and start keeping track of these people, okay? Because at some point you're going to come to them and you're going to ask them to review your book. You can do this before the book is released, during launch week, 6 months later. Either way, you want to start the process of building relationships with reviewers. We saw the Slowly We Die review. That was kind of a long review. It wasn't some short, sweet, punchy thing. That's because I spent time on that. Those reviews are gonna, a lot of them happen before that book is ever even published. And you can get reviews on Amazon before your book is actually published, but I can answer that later at some point if you want. Alright, so I will give you at least 2 places where you can find book bloggers. Booksirens.com has a book blogger directory, book reviewer directory. Booksirens.com, and then ReadZ has one. You can't, I think you can just go straight to I have it bookmarked. But ReadZ has a list of book reviewers, and you can say like fantasy, self-published, go. And then it'll pull up 100 book bloggers that review. And then you make the list, you start building relationships with them, getting to know them, and then once your book is about ready to go, send that baby off to them and ask for reviews. So a launch team is something that I don't recommend doing it unless you actually have people that can become part of your launch team. If you're starting from the very beginning, like maybe you're going to self-publish this year, but you've always kind of been a ghost on social media, you're just getting your website up, building a launch team might not be that easy. You might want to wait for the next book. What is a launch team? Well, while your book is going through the self-publishing process, you can, if you want, build a team of people who are going to help spread the word about your book. This can be friends, family members, writers group members, author group members, anything of that nature. But it needs to be people who actually want to talk about your book and spread the word about it. Are we due for a break yet? We are. Do you guys need a break? You good? All right, okay. So the way I did it is I always just created a Facebook group and said, get picked launch team. And then people who wanted to help spread the word about that book would join it. And we would give them things to do. We'd say like, hey, will you retweet the pinned tweet today? It's all about get picked because the pre-order link went out today. Will you, are there any bloggers in here and would you like to interview Aurora Gregory about her book? Oh yeah, I want to do that. And then we'd make a list of that. And it can grow and grow. Like David here, he had 700, I believe, in his Facebook launch group. Now, he spent like a couple of years blogging his book. He blogged the thing, and then he did developmental editing and all that. So he had a lot of time to build up his fan base, right? And then I've had some where, like with Wingbound, which is young adult fantasy, she didn't have that many. I want to say it was like 100 maybe, but man, they did such a good job, talking about the book, and they were so willing to review it and do anything they could to help get the word out. That is a wonderful thing that you guys can do. It's free, it just costs time. That's all it costs. So I do have a course on how to do that. We can talk about that at some point. But, they're there to support you. That's what they're there for. And you keep them excited and interested and engaged. Some people do little incentives in their group. All sorts of cool things that you can do. All right, so where are you supposed to self-publish? Like, we've been working hard. Like, our editor's been working hard. I've been doing this, I've been doing that. Now what? The list is quite short for the ones that I recommend. Obviously, Amazon is at the very, very top. It's created a monopoly on everything, hasn't it? It's really just. Have you guys seen the Amazon Mercedes vans around delivering stuff now? Like now they've got that. They've really done everything they can to just be like, we're going to be the go-to for everything. And it did start out with books, by the way. So it makes sense that they would be the giant in the book world. Apple iBooks, you can have your ebook available on there. Barnes & Noble, that's Nook for Barnes & Noble. Well, what if I want to print my book? Well, we talked about Amazon KDP earlier, which stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. I have how-to videos for that, but that's used to be what happened was we had CreateSpace. That was our print-on-demand publisher. Well, in early 2017, they started beta testing like Amazon KDP print. And of course, the big rumor was they're gonna merge it, and that's exactly what they did in 2018. So now we use KDP Print to print our books. I feel like that's what this is. They don't have hardcover yet, but man, it was really easy to order my author copies. What that means is that I buy these at cost. My book is available for $18.97 on Amazon, right? I'm not gonna pay that. I'll pay the wholesale price. So I pay, about $4 for this, and then if people want signed copies, or I do book signings, or here, for example, then I have that available. So there's also Ingram Spark. They have more options. That you can do the hardback, and you can. I do think that the quality is really wonderful. In fact, if you want to just feel the difference between these two, can you feel how nice that is? The quality is really wonderful, but it is expensive. There's a fee. I think it used to be $60, I think, to set up. I can't remember if that's what it still is. But you do have a better chance, most likely, of getting into bookstores. If you have indie bookstores around here, which I know you guys do, they're pretty happy to take. They don't usually care, but some other ones, they want to make sure that it meets certain types of things. So you can see the difference between the two. So
Real quick before
yes,
we
go
move
ahead.
on. There's actually one you're missing, and it's Kobo. Kobo is the international platform, but they also have just recently started last year going into the U.S. Market.
That's why I didn't have them on there for a reason. So I only put on there the ones that I personally recommend. I've had authors use them, and then they wound up stopping just due to different issues. Like Drafted Digital was also another one. Smashwords. I did have authors who were having issues, like a lot of issues with their books being pirated from the latter two, and so that's why they personally stopped. Like S.D. Hendrickson was one of them. But I haven't personally used them. You can. You absolutely totally can. You have to do what's best for you, your book, your budget, all those things. Kobo, that I just personally wanted to, for me, I'm not wide. I'm only on Amazon, and there's reasons for that. But then other people, they want to go wide. They don't want to have Amazon be their big brother telling them, you got to stay right here, not do anything. They didn't want to be exclusive. They wanted to be available on all the different self-publishing platforms, and that's great too. You have to make those decisions, which we'll talk about, but you have to decide what works best for you. So do your research. Go, you can type in like Kobo versus Amazon versus Nook, and Nook versus Amazon, and you can see the pros and cons. People out there, make those articles all the time. So just, yeah, definitely do your research and figure out what you want. Your book cover is never, ever, ever, ever to be designed by you. But I'm a graphic design artist. I still say no, because I shouldn't be editing my own book. I'm an editor. That's literally my job, and I have no business editing my own book because I can't possibly pick up on the things. My brain is going to tell me things are there that aren't. With a book cover, man, you get so close to your book, don't you? You have to be able to hand it off to a professional. We've always heard that quote, never judge a book by its cover. That's a complete and utter lie. That's the first thing you do is look at that cover. It's the first thing. That's what it's there for, and it is a beautiful marketing tool. It can be the difference in how much money you make as a self-publishing author. In fact, this was not the original cover. Originally, Emma Gardner did this cover herself, and then she realized, I really got her professional, and so she had it redone, and it wound up being like such a great marketing tool because she wound up getting way more sales because the cover was so beautifully done. So how are you supposed to go about doing this? Let's say that you've maybe seen some book cover designers that you really like, or you've just seen book covers that you thought were really beautiful. Remember, we saw in that copyright page, we can find out who designed the cover. You can find that in a copyright page, or just by contacting the author. It's Melinda Martin did this cover. I see it on the copyright page. So you can find that out. And what you're going to want to do is usually you want to start, remember that market research earlier? Okay, so we're back to that again for our cover. A cover for a historical fiction book should not look the same as what it would for romance, okay? Like, these are two very different genres. In fact, we'll go ahead and take a look real quick. So obviously, we're going to see a difference between a book about being homeless, which is nonfiction, okay? Very text heavy, very simple, very minimalist, versus high fantasy. There's a humongous difference between the two, right? This designer probably has no business working for this type of genre because they're so different. And so that's why when you try to pick your cover design artist, make sure that they design covers in your genre. Well, yeah, but they did all these other covers and they were so pretty. Well, is it in your genre? Well, no. Then they probably shouldn't be doing it because there is a psychology behind the genre. And that's why it's so important. There's a whole mess of people who are going to love this book based solely on the cover. But then there's a whole other mess of people that, you know, they're probably going to, maybe they'll look at this cover and they're like, oh, that's not for me. I know that it's fantasy, but it's way more geared toward young adult. I can tell. Like, I can tell that this one's probably going to be more for, like, girls who love mermaids and fairies. Not the people who want to see the sword fights and cutting off ears and stuff, okay? There's going to be two totally different things. So when you're working with a cover design artist, you might want to go ahead and have some things prepared. Remember we made that media kit earlier? Go ahead and go back to that and take a look at some things. Grab your book blurb, grab your headshot, grab a few things so that your cover design artist can create a really beautiful cover for you and have all those things ready. You will want to make sure that you have a really beautiful contract. By the way, you need a contract, and also please don't forget the contract, okay? Yes, it's important to have one with an editor, but man, I think if any contract cannot be missed, it's got to be that cover. When you're working with art, I mean, I'm telling you, really make sure that you've got that. Now, the copyright, like the creation, the copyright of this cover, you know, it gets turned over. The rights to it get turned over to that author. Just like my edits have a copyright on them. It's your book, but when I went and changed everything to how it should be done in my edits, once you're paid in full, I relinquish that copyright to you. Now it's yours. Okay, now you can use my edits. It's the same with covers. So you'll want to go ahead and make sure you talk about, you know, how are they going to be communicating with you? Is it going to be mostly via email? Do they prefer a different method? Are they going to, what's their turnaround time? Man, that's got to be in the contract. Stay on them. Let's go ahead and look at what it's going to, well, okay. So remember, they're not just creating this front cover, okay? Your cover design artist, if you are doing print, has to have a spine and the back cover, which will have your blurb, and if you create a tagline, the barcode, all that. So you can see here, this was made first, right? So anytime you see an ebook on Kindle, you're going to see this. If you see this whole thing, someone messed up. It should just be this. But then my cover design artist finished up the spine, and you can see this kind of zigs down here, and she keeps this binary code over here, right? And then this is the back cover. This is a PDF. That's what this is. That's the format that it's in. You have to upload that to Amazon, KDP if you print with them, or you upload it to Ingram Spark if you print with them. If you don't do print, you don't need this. If you choose to do print, your cover design artist needs to know how to do this, or you're going to have to hire somebody else to do it, which means you're working with 2 different cover design artists, which is another fee. So make sure that you have somebody who knows what they're doing with that. Let's go ahead and pause for a second. You guys have questions about covers and like, I do have 2 to recommend for you, Melinda Martin and Monica Haynes. What questions can I answer about, you know, a self-published cover, or if you guys, I don't think any of you guys are doing children's books, but, you know, then there's working with an illustrator. That's a whole other thing. Any questions about working with a cover designer and anything like that? Okay, so now what we're going to do is move on to formatting your book. Unfortunately, you can't, I mean, I guess you could just upload the Word doc and call it a day and then receive a lot of really angry reviews from people who have no idea what's going on with the format of your book. So when you're doing that, yes, you can do the formatting on your own, by the way, if you are familiar with it and you know how to use those programs. I don't, and so I've always hired my own formatters because I don't have the patience to do all that. I want it taken care of for me. But it does have to be formatted. That text has to look really beautiful. Like when this was done, we haven't really played with any children's books, so we'll do that. When this was done, you know, they had to hire a formatter to take these beautiful illustrations and the text and bring them together into a PDF that could be uploaded and printed. It had to. I couldn't do that. I don't think I could do that. If we look at the formatting for this one, like everyone's different. Okay, some people, they like to have their title up here. Some like to have it in the middle. Some like to have their author name in the middle or here. You're always going to have your page numbers. Some people will do illustrations in their book. Actually, okay, like let's say you did a memoir, and let's say that some of the pictures that you have from life in general are actually like really, really fascinating. You can have them added to your book. Very rarely does this work out well. There has to be a point. There's a pretty good point in having the mugshot in this memoir written by a former federal prisoner. That works, and I had no problem with him doing that. You can have photos added. That's something your formatter does. You can also see how sometimes things need to be italicized to set it off. You know, this was a letter, and so it needed to look a little bit different. In fact, with Homeless But Human, he had real journal entries from when he was actually homeless on the streets of Chicago. And so he wanted those to be set apart. So you can see that, like, he'll finish up a chapter, and he told the formatter, hey, I want the journal entries to look a little different. And so she did. She'd make them look different font, and they would very clearly look like an actual journal entry. So your formatter is in charge of that. Your formatter is there to make sure that your book looks great when it's printed and when it's an ebook. That is her job. So you are welcome to hire somebody to do that, or you can use, I think it's Vellum and Calibre, right? Are those the two?
No.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody in my class is did hers on Amazon. Amazon.
Yeah. Wait, Amazon to format it, or?
No, Amazon to print.
Oh, I see, Amazon, okay.
I just went blank there for a minute.
That's okay.
Anyway, she said
You
she
need
did,
her copy.
No, she did her Scrivener.
Scribe. Oh yeah, you
to
can.
Vellum,
Yeah.
and then Vellum took it to PDF.
Right, and so
she actually
it
formatted.
just
her book
depends
herself.
on like some people do it to cut costs. I just don't know how to do it, you guys, and I don't want to mess with it.
It's awful.
I agree.
It's awful. I said
I'm
I
good.
will
I
not do it
really,
myself ever again.
really rather not mess with it. I do have some reminders. You know, you want to, your book at this point, it's already been copied. I mean, it is looking gorgeous, but it hasn't been proofread yet. Remember, we want to have it proofread on the typeset document if possible, okay? Because we'll miss errors that way. Also, you might want to just check your typefaces, make sure that, you know, if there's a like maybe you choose a certain typeface that you had to go buy, like you had to buy a license for it, that should show up on the copyright page, and your designer should probably know about it. It's just little stuff like that that really, I'll be honest with you, that's the formatter's job, is to tell you that stuff. I'm just telling you ahead of time. And all of these little things are in my pre-publishing checklist, and you can have the slides, but what you'll do is you're going to order a proof copy of your print book. Some people skip this step, and I get so sad because sometimes you'd be shocked at the errors that come back on that cover. Like one time I had an author, he wasn't my client, but I'd heard about it. So he didn't have time to order a proof copy, have it sent to his house, check it out, then go back, make any corrections needed to like the cover, or maybe he just found one little thing. You know, have the formatter fix that, and then order those author copies, like I was talking about. So we skipped that. Well, everything looked gorgeous. Man, it looks so good, Except his name was misspelled on the spine. And so you want to go ahead and get that proof copy, and it's no big deal. Amazon Kindle does it, KDP does it. It's no big deal. But maybe do that before you go order like 500 copies of your book, okay? It would definitely save you a lot of frustration. Pre-marketing, part 2. Now what? All right, well, at this point, you have edited a book, you have a beautiful book cover, and you hopefully have a following of people who are ready to read your book. But it's not time to publish this yet. Don't hit the button just yet, okay? There's a few more things you can do. Book funnel is so cool. Is anybody familiar with that? So remember I was saying, like, we have book bloggers and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm not, and this is how I used to do it, okay? When I would pitch to the book bloggers, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, I want to read. Okay, well, let me attach it. And I'd attach the PDF or Mobi or EPUB as a file, and it would always be too big, and then it would send it in Google Drive, and then they'd be like, well, I can't get the Google Drive to work, and it was just so inconvenient. Remember, people have busy lives, so we want to make things convenient. BookFunnel, I'm serious, you guys, it's like $6 or $8 for a whole year. It's ridiculously cheap. What it means is that you get an account with them, and you set it up, and you upload the digital files. So you can upload PDF, EPUB, and Mobi. Those are the files you'll be working with as a self-published author. You'll upload them, and you get to create a cool little website page, a little landing page. In fact, let's go look at one real quick. You get to create it, and then you get a link. You get a BookFunnel link. And when it's time to go get people to read your book, ahead of time for endorsements, for reviews, all of that, they get to have it way before it's even published and it's ready to go. But of course you can't do any of that until it's actually been edited and formatted. So here's what A is for Ancestors looks like. This is one link, and my book bloggers would get this link. Rather than me saying, okay, I attached it or whatever, I say you can download it in any format you want, just click this link. They click it, and they get to see the title and the little book blurb, and they say, get my book. And then they say, oh, I think I'm going to read it on my iPhone, whatever. And then boom, it'd be sent their way or downloaded straight to their computer. Really awesome lifesaver. Especially as someone who pitches to book bloggers, a lot of this saved frustration. So I'm definitely, and I'm serious, you guys, I think it's $6 a year. If it's gone up, it's only gone up by a couple of bucks. Another thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your website has all the information on there. Can I pre-order it yet? Are there any incentives? Maybe if you have any pre-release reviews, get that all up on there. You can also use indiebound.org to find any independent bookstores that could do a book signing for you, that could take your book on consignment. Definitely check into that. It's so cool. You just type in your zip code and you can find every single independent bookstore you want in your area. You can also spend this time ordering any promotional products you like. I like to have bookmarks, which you guys get to leave with today. I like to have bookmarks. I've done magnets before, coffee cups. That's just kind of a fun thing to do for promoting yourself online. Anytime that you do photos, that's cool. Or maybe if you have your book signing, you can have some swag there. Spend some time doing this. You can also be, you want to be spending time. Remember we were talking about those teasers earlier where you do that. This is your time to do that. Your book is in the self-publishing process right now. Maybe everything's getting really close to the time or whatever. Keep talking about your book. You'll also want to kind of create what I call you can call it a blog tour calendar or even a book tour calendar. What it means, I just make it in a Google Doc. Remember, I've spent all this time building relationships with bloggers, trying to get endorsements. I've been doing all this stuff. Well, I need to stay organized, so I can create a little calendar and be like, okay, on March 1st, an interview on Facebook Live about my book. On March 3rd, I'm on a podcast to talk about the book. On March 7th, my review is supposed to come out with, whatever's the name of some book review blog. Keep track of that stuff. You will be surprised how quickly it stacks up over time. As you get near to your book launch date, you might want to keep track of what you're doing to promote it. Like, what are you doing and who else is helping? Keep track of that stuff so that you know what's going on. Also, you can schedule interviews prior to your book's release. When your pre-order link is up, anytime people interview you about your book, you can put that pre-order link there. I've gotten many sales just from doing things like that. Of course, talk about it in your email newsletter, but remember, it's not about buy. It's keeping things interesting, talking about what makes this book so amazing. So this is a quick example. Remember, I really kind of talked a lot about book bloggers. By the way, it's free. Yes, there are paid book bloggers out there, but it's free to get people to review your book. These book bloggers, I do it for free. I do not charge. I love getting books for free and getting to read them and review them and talk about them. It's so fun for me. I have these examples on a book blogger how-to, which I'll give you the link to at the end of this. But I mean, I just start out with like, now he's been doing pretty amazing. So he got Lead Child to endorse it. So I've got this cool stuff, but what if I don't know Lead Child? How am I supposed to get, book bloggers to say yes? Well, then there's my author Maria. She did a book called Faith versus Weight, and I mean, she didn't have all that stuff. She didn't have amazing people like so-and-so endorsing her book. And so what I really focused on was, Maria had been following like 100 book bloggers on Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, wherever they were. And I had been following them. And so we'd been, building relationships with them over time. And then I would DM them after a while, direct message them on Instagram and be like, hey, would you be interested in reviewing my author's book? But at this point, they were familiar with me. Oh yeah, just go and email me. Oh, okay. And that's why it says, like, we chatted via DM not too long ago about Maria's book. Thanks for responding and talking to me. And then I just tell her about why this book matters. Like, why would she, because I couldn't use a bunch of endorsements at this point. Right? Because this is her first book, first everything. So I focused on, the passion that she has behind this book. That's what I focused on. And then there's that cool little book funnel link. And I always tell them, like, if this book isn't for you, no worries at all. Maybe you could do something fun, like an Instagram photo. Thanks. Yes, yeah. Okay, I just downloaded it. But do you realize that, like, this email, I mean, 2 or 3 months prior, I've been working hard on building relationships with these people, and so had Maria, right? That's what you're doing, you're building relationships. So it's not like I just cold called them, essentially. There was time and effort put into those things. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to publish on Amazon. So now I told you guys, I have a how-to video for that, and you guys can have it. It's 15 minutes long. The first half is teaching you how to set up your ebook on KDP, and then the second half of the video teaches you how to do the paperback version. So what I'm going to do instead is I just want to kind of give you guys a good idea of what KDP looks like. So this is Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. This is just your dashboard, okay? So you have your bookshelf, which means that every book you self-publish on Amazon shows up here. Your reports show you how much moolah you're raking in. Community is a cool place to go. It's like a forum so that you can learn different things about KDP and get help. And then KDP Select, we'll talk about in just a little bit, okay? So, let's say that it's time to self-publish your book, okay? It's been edited, proofread, it's been typeset. I mean, you guys have been working so hard all this time. You finally get to set this bad boy up for pre-orders. You've done all this stuff, and you listen to this pink-haired lady talk for like 3 hours, and you're finally ready to get this done. So you'll come in here, and the first thing you want to start with, I always start with ebook usually. I click the plus sign because I'm going to create a new title. But I'm going to just kind of go straight into mine so that you can actually see what the final product would look like. So we'll start from the very beginning, and I'll just kind of give you a good overview because my how-to video is very in-depth and super helpful, but I do want you guys to see what it looks like. So the first thing that we look at here is you have your book title. Now, if I was doing nonfiction, like your memoir, like it's gonna have a subtitle most likely, right? So that would go there. Fantasy, Crystal, do you do a you would know that you could have a series name there, right? So that's really nice to have. And then your edition number, your series number. I mean, a lot of this stuff is so self-explanatory, but pretty easy stuff. Remember earlier I said that if somebody contributes, like you could type in an editor's name and they would pop up on Amazon maybe if the author added them as a contributor, and then you could like look at the reviews. Well, I did that with my cover design artist. Monica Haynes created my cover. So I added her as a contributor. It's called Illustrator in Amazon, but she's my cover design artist. If I wanted, I could, sorry, my little cursor is so itty bitty on here. If I wanted, I could add more. See? Like let's say that let's say you had a foreword by somebody pretty awesome wrote your foreword. You could put their name on there. Or let's say that you did a travel book and you had like some amazing photographer. You would add that. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy stuff. That's just what that means. That's what that's there for. Remember when I had you guys write the blurb way back when? That was like ages ago. That's where that goes. It shows up on your Amazon page. Have you ever seen the book descriptions where sometimes stuff is bolded? Like it might be a bolded tagline. It might be any awards the book has won. It might be like you might even see endorsements on there. You can do that. You can do that. Now you will need an Amazon Author Essential account to do that, which I explain here in a little bit. But that's where your book blurb goes. You do own the copyright and hold the necessary publishing rights. Keywords are just, Lord. Keywords are so frustrating. It is way more an art than a science. I don't care what anybody says. You'll change them. What it means is that I need to think of at least 7 keywords that describe the plot of my book or the message of my book. What I don't want to do is use the same words in my title. I don't want to use the same keywords as my genre. So my genre, if you go look up my book, it'll say cyberpunk. It'll say cyberpunk on there. I'm not going to use that as a keyword, but I'll use hacker. So now I've got 2 different things going on here. I don't want to, I mean, you don't have a lot of room here, right? So you don't want to replicate anything. Don't be redundant. I have personality disorder on there, mystery on there, romance, disease, hacker, corporation, humor. I have changed them many times over and I monitor it. All it means is that when somebody goes on Amazon and they type in like hacker novel, hacker book, hopefully I'll come up. If they type in, like personality disorder novel, then that'll come up. So like half of mine are general and then like the other half are like specific. I've done ultra specific. I mean, you play around with it until you get it right. Definitely spend some time reading up on it, but keywords are kind of annoying. So you can see right there, by genre, you get 2 categories when you're doing your ebook, okay? And I chose cyberpunk and action and adventure because I knew my genre. When you guys did all that market research way back there, you should already know by now what genres to select. So you would actually have memoir. I mean, that would be its own genre, but you can get even more nitty gritty within that.
I didn't realize until I did a legal class that the guy said to me, "Oh, so you're writing a crime thriller, a true crime," and I thought, "Oh, that's a good market to."
No, that depends on how you wrote it. If you're writing it like in cold blood, fine. But if you didn't write it, then no, you're not. That is not. True crime reads just like a novel.
Okay.
Just except that it's true. A memoir has novel elements. It does not read like a novel.
This does not read like cold blood.
Then it is not true crime. It is not true crime. At first blink, you'd think like, oh, well, it must be because it's true and it's crime. No. It should read just like a thrilling novel. Only difference is it really happened. That's the difference. But a memoir is not gonna read like that. So that I'm glad you brought that up. Excellent that you brought that up. Age groups, you can skip that. Originally, this had a pre-order thing here, and I told it, yep, I want this up for pre-order, and it was there, and you could pre-order it. And then the second my book was released, it just shows up on people's Kindles, like the day that it's released. So that's the first part, which is your book details. The second part of Amazon KDP is, here we go. It's going to be the content itself. So now is the time when you upload the EPUB or MOBI file that your formatter worked so hard on. You upload your cover. This is where you do all of that. Now, you'll notice here, I uploaded the ebook manuscript. That was done. This has already been done. I had already uploaded the file. Remember we saw that if you do print, you have the spine, this whole thing. That does not show up there. So every now and then I'll see a self-published book on Amazon, and even if it's the ebook, and it'll have like the full, and I'm like, why did you do this? Make sure that it's just that front cover, okay? The online previewer is kind of cool. So what it means is that once you put your book on there and you've uploaded it, you want to actually see what it might look like on other devices. And so Amazon allows us to see that. We can see what the suicide tree would look like on a tablet. We can see like, oh, what does it look like on a phone? Let's go check that out real quick. And then you can play around with it and decide, do I like the way that looks? Oh, there's the copyright page. There's my dedication. The whole 9 yards. So you can see that. That's what that previewer is for. which is really handy. It's really nice to go ahead and have that available so that you know it looks the way you want it to. That way if you get in there and surprise, your pages, there's like 5. I just had an author, she had poetry, and she goes, okay, the format is done, blah, 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 and you know, she's looking at it, she goes, there's like 12 extra blank pages in there. And if she hadn't looked at it on the previewer, she wouldn't have known that. And then, oh, okay, let's figure out what's going on. So just go through that, take a quick look. Why is there an ISBN option there? Well, if you can get one for an ebook, but it's not required. So that's why they have that there. And then my publisher name is Curious or Editing LLC. But you guys can always come up with whatever I mean, I have people use their last name and do, you know, books at the end of it. Like, I'm trying to see what Rich's is. Let's see what his is real quick. His is Blue Byron Books. Like, that's the name of his. And he just uses his social security number to set up the tax information on Amazon rather than an EIN. The third part is your pricing. So much fun. Notice how we have the option to enroll in Kindle KDP Select. We'll talk about that in just a second. I'll explain what it is. But that's where you do that. You own worldwide rights. I always have to really enunciate that because I want to say like worldwide rights. KDP pricing. Why in the world would I choose a lower amount for the royalty? Why would I do that? Well, some people do that so that they can go put their ebook wherever in the world they want. They can say, okay, I want to have it on Amazon, but I also want to use it here, blah, blah, blah. They're not being solely exclusive to Amazon. But then there's me, and I say, okay, no, I'm not going to go wide. I'm only going to have it available on Amazon, so I want the most amount of royalties. Crystal, what do you use?
70.
You do? Okay. Yeah. So then I can do my prices. Now notice that they're telling me you're selling your ebook. This is ebook only, we're not on paperback. You're selling your ebook for $2.99 and you have a 70% royalty rate. That means that I make a big old whopping $2.04. So that's what it's telling you. If I adjust this price, it'll tell me a different amount of my like what would my royalty be if I sold it for $4.99. It'll update it. Okay? So if you're trying to figure out how much to profit from paperback and from ebook, you can do that pretty easily right in front of your face. So that really is very helpful. Matchbook means that if somebody goes and buys your like the paperback version, they'll have the option to get, you know, your Kindle book for $2.99 or less. I do it for free. Like they can, if they buy the paperback, they can have it for free. You don't have to do that, but it's just, you know, it's an option. The other thing is book lending. There's different controversies on this. You have to do it if you do 70% royalty, I believe. Like, I can't uncheck that unless I change it to 35%. What it means is that, like, let's say I'm reading an ebook and I loved it and I told my friend about it and she goes, oh, you know, I don't want to spend X amount of money on it. Can I borrow it from you? Just like you do from a library or something. You can do that and it'll leave their book. Is it after 14 days or is it 7?
It says 14.
Is it 14? Okay.
I mean, that's not so bad if it's only 14
Yeah.
days.
So that's what that means. And then it just, like, it disappears from their Kindle after 14 days. And then it says it'll take up to 72 hours for your title to be available for purchase on Amazon. Never once has it taken that long. I mean, it has barely reached the 24-hour mark for me usually. So then what you do is you can either save it as a draft and come back later, or you can go ahead and publish your Kindle ebook. They will email you and they'll tell you, like, congratulations, your book is now available on Amazon, which is like the coolest feeling ever. So then you can do that. Now I like to set this up because once your ebook is set up, then that information is already available in the paperback, and then you just kind of start tweaking as you go along and fill in the blanks. I'm not going to go through this because it's literally the same thing, okay? It is the same thing. The difference here, literally, did you see that? Like, it's all the same thing. The difference here, you're going to be uploading the PDF of your cover, not just the front cover. We want that full PDF that your cover designer worked so hard on. You choose your ISBN. Remember I told you can get a free ISBN, but if you bought one from Bowker, then you would just select the other one, and you type in the one that you own that you paid, you know, $100 and something for. So I just chose the free one because I'm a cheapo. So that's what I chose, and then I told them, hey, I want to make sure that my print book is ready to go by such and such date. And then I chose what I wanted mine to look like. So I chose the black and white interior with cream paper, and I chose, I knew that my book was 6 by 9 inches way before I ever got to this point, because I knew it would be that when I was working with my cover design artist. Your cover designer needs to know how big to make the cover, right? Your formatter needs to know how big. So I knew it was going to be a 6 by 9. How did I know that? There are 3 sizes that are the most popular ones. The first one is 5.5 by 8.5. The other is 6 by 9. And then if you're doing children's book, it's 8 by 10. Are there other sizes you can do? Yes. Like some of my ones that do like the journal type self-help books, those are bigger because they want them to have room to write. I've had like this one was smaller because it came with this companion workbook. Your formatter is supposed to help you guys figure that stuff out, so don't fret over it. Okay, so and then I chose the matte, which is like this is. Let's look at a matte versus a gloss. Okay, so this is gloss matte. I don't like gloss for the weirdest reason. When I take photos of gloss, there's always that light in it, and when I put it on social media, it looks awful, and it always frustrates me.
It looks cheaper too.
It does, and I love the feel of the matte. It just feels better. So there we go. Those are the differences between the two. All right, then you upload your manuscript, which will be also PDF. Okay, so
What is blade and no blade?
where are we at? Oh.
So I'm just.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that, because if you ever don't know, like they are so good about this stuff. You can hover over it. So, okay, so this is your margins right here, right? Like if I recall, and this is why I don't do formatting. There is a bleed here, okay? Or there's no bleed. In other words, if you had like.
It's a safety board.
See?
So
Do you see how it goes to the very edge? You don't want it to do that.
And that's called
with
blade
my
or no
text.
blade.
This one is, I always get them mixed up, so this is no bleed because it's bleeding out to the edge.
bleeds are basically for designers, and what it is to tell them, okay, this is where they're gonna cut the paper.
Yes.
That's what a bleed is. So when your designer goes in and formats the pages and stuff, they know that the image, or if it's a text, they only have that certain space before the bleed. If they go beyond the bleed, then you run the risk of whatever's beyond that
Right.
cut point.
Okay,
is
so
gonna
But
get
you
cut off.
don't want like that. You see that white margin that we had for this? Like you're not gonna want that for a children's book.
you're right.
You want it to go all the way out, right? No, I mean, I'm not saying that some people haven't done that. It's just that usually, but yeah, that is correct. So when you get, thank you. So when you get a little confused, just hover and double check. I have my formatter, keep them nearby when you set this up because it could be really helpful. Okay, and then you can also do the same thing. Launch that previewer. We've already seen that. But you can do the same thing and look at what your print cover would, the whole thing, what it would look like from beginning to end. I mean, you can see it's really user-friendly. It's not hard. I think Ingram Spark is very, very difficult to use. But a lot of people just kind of go through it to get the quality and this and all the extras. Again, you're going to see the same thing, okay? So it explains, here's how much it costs to print, and here's this, and here's that. You can change this. It's okay. If you decide, you know what, maybe I should lower the price. Maybe I should up it. You can change it. And then you just click right here to request a proof copy. So remember, we got to do that before we go order like 100, 200 author copies. So it just redirects you. And then you can order just one solo little copy. Well, if you want to order more than one, you can, but I usually just order one.
Is that the one that comes, this is not for resale?
That is correct. So one thing that people did not like about Amazon KDP versus CreateSpace is that when you ordered a proof copy, it has on there a banner and it says like, this is not for resale. And it really annoyed people because they didn't want it to say that on there. And I can kind of get that, but I didn't care because it was a proof copy and I knew I was going to be marking it up. So for me, it didn't bother me at all. But once you do your author copies, no, that's not going to say that at all. No, these are author copies. This is not going to say that. Okay, so that's what we're looking at with Amazon KDP. And, man, look at all that work we had to do just to get to this point, right? There's so much that goes into it. So let's pause for a second. What questions do you guys have about publishing on Amazon KDP? Like anything at all that is confusing to you that you feel like you need a little bit more direction on? You guys are making this too easy.
I feel like my head is hurting. I mean, it's not your fault.
I understand.
But it's like,
How
I
am
will
I
take
supposed
this
to
in,
do this?
I will take your stuff that you're going to send us, and when I get to that point, it's almost like
That's
you have
why I have
yeah.
so many how-to
I'm the
guides.
same way.
Because it's not there's no way that you could listen to everything I just said and then go repeat it. That's
really
why I do the videos.
I
That's
feel like
why
my eyes are crossed.
it's, and in fact, for example, Melinda Martin, the cover design artist, she is also an interior formatter, a wonderfully intelligent and talented self-publishing mentor. Man, she's so, we have clients that we work with together, and they'll be like, Melinda, can you set this up for me on Amazon? I don't even, it's not that I don't want to learn, it's literally that my head's about to explode, and she'll do it really, really fast. So that's why it's important to pick people who are savvy with self-published anything. Because I have worked in the past with clients who, maybe they hired me for editing or marketing, but then the cover designers, they might have been able to create beautiful covers, but they didn't know anything about the specs required for that cover for Amazon or Ingram Spark, and it just turned into a nightmare. So having somebody who understands all that stuff, it really is more about, it saves you time and frustration. Let's talk a little bit about Kindle Select. I'm just going to give you the pros and cons, but let me explain. Have you ever gone to Amazon and you go to buy a book, and then it says this book is $0, the ebook, not paperback, but the ebook is $0 if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, meaning that you bought a subscription with Kindle so that you can read millions of books for free. It has been the subject of ridicule and debate and controversy forever because some authors love KDP Select and they swear by it and they feel like, man, I make the most money by offering my book for free. How do they get paid? They get paid by each page, how many pages that are read. So yes, Kindle, they know that. So however many pages are read, that is how the author gets paid, rather than a flat price that they got paid the royalty from $2.99. Okay? Some of them swear by it. They stay exclusive. Remember I said that you can be exclusive with Amazon, meaning that if I use KDP Select, I can't go have my ebook on Apple iBooks and Google Play and all these places. I just let Amazon have it. KDP Select makes a lot of other authors really frustrated and angry, and even Crystal kind of goes like, pfft. So have you used it before, or what are your feelings on KDP Select?
I unenrolled.
I did too.
Yeah, it was.
I did too.
You can also see how many people just start your book and stop reading it, which
That is
really,
true.
Which is really disheartening. So there was that, but I was not making any money off of it, and maybe if I had multiple titles out, it would be different. But I really did not want. For the future, I don't want to be limited to Amazon, so that's
right.
But
you're not with paperback. You can do whatever the world you want with paperback. Just so we're clear, we're talking about.
And you
ebooks.
only you only have to do KDP for 90 days at a time. So
exactly.
You can unenroll and re-enroll as long as your book isn't on other platforms. So you can try it out.
So it's a 3-month commitment. If you don't like it, you don't. So let's do the pros real fast. 100 million people, apparently, who buy into the Kindle Unlimited program can buy a real EL book. They can, read that book for free, whatever. The only thing is that we don't know. Amazon says, okay, there's 100 million Kindle Unlimited subscribers, right? But, they're not telling, okay, but how many statistically are going to read my book, right? Also, this is a pro and a con, but a lot of people, the pro supposedly is like, oh, you get paid on the number of pages you read. So if you're a novelist and you have this behemoth of a book and they read the whole thing, you know, you're gonna potentially, most likely, you're gonna be making more money than if they had just spent 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99 on it. But what about the people like, you know, who write these really short and sweet novellas or these short and sweet business books? Because business books now, like, they don't need to be hitting the 50,000 mark. You know, they need to be in like the 20,000, 30,000. So what about them? So again, going all the way back to genre, that makes a difference on whether or not KDP Select is right for you. Again, 3 months, try it. Don't like it, back out. Want to try again? Do it. Again, though, cons, you can only publish your ebook on Amazon. You can't go have it. You can't be wide. You are exclusive to them. So that means that you could be missing out on a lot of other readers, but then we go back to the fact that Amazon has created a monopoly on everything. I mean, you see where this is going, right? Like, Amazon owns it all. If you violate the KDP Select rules in any way, they can ban you from selling on their site. So maybe, you know, you said, yep, I agree to be exclusive to you, and then I'm secretly selling it on all these other, they'll shut it down. You can't be perma-free. What in the world does that mean? It just means that it's a really good marketing tactic where, especially if you're a series writer, you give the first ebook away for free as your email newsletter freebie. That way, then you create these long-time readers, and they'll go buy all the other books in the series. You can't do that. So there are some pros and cons. My suggestion is always try it. It's literally like 90 days. If you don't like it, back out. I have authors who will never do anything else. However, Crystal, I'm assuming you're familiar with BookBub. Oh man, so great. You know, if you're a reader, you just type in your email address and you tell them what genres you want to read. They send you an email newsletter once a day or once a week, and it tells you, hey, you know, here's all these thrillers that are free this week. 99 cents, $1.99, whatever. They make a stupid amount of money because authors pay for that. So on the author side, you give them money, and if you get accepted, then they'll promote your book. They will not do it if you have KDP Select, if you're part of KDP Select. They also will not promote your book. They will not accept it if you don't have at least 15 Amazon reviews. So I'm going to give you a list of some other ones to check out. This comes along later, way later in the game. All right. Amazon Author Central, you set this up for free. This is no big deal. All it means is that when you go see the Father Effect on Amazon, it says by Blake Atwood, right? And you can click it, and it'll lead you to his Amazon Author Central account. This gives a little bio about him. I can follow him so that when he releases new books, it shows up. It shows all his books here. The reason why you need Amazon Author Central, the reason why you go set it up is because you get to have like editorial reviews you can put on there. You'd think that would be in KDP, that you would go into Amazon KDP and have a section for editorial reviews. Remember from book bloggers, endorsements? It's not. You actually do it in Amazon Author Central, which makes 0 sense. But that's in the checklist. I explained how to do that. Let's go ahead, and I'm not even going to, you guys, I mean, I know that Facebook ads is literally like its own thing, but I just want to give you guys a piece of encouragement. I would encourage you to try Facebook ads if you have a Facebook author page. I do those for my author clients. I do them for myself. Have you ever been scrolling through Facebook and you see a sponsored ad? And I mean, if you read a lot, like you'll probably see them for books. I see them for thrillers a lot. Or if you, what is that funny meme that's like, okay, Facebook, like I went on Amazon one time to buy a toilet seat cover, like I don't need a list of them, and like I'm good, right? Which it's weird to know how much everything knows about us, but those, you know, I've done that. I've specifically targeted people that read science fiction adventure. I specifically targeted people in the Yukon, Mustang, OKC area to come to my conference. I've targeted people, that sounds really weird, I've targeted them, but that's what it's called. You target them in Facebook ads, and I mean, man, it works. So this is what I'm going to recommend. There is an author, he's a self-published author named Mark Dawson. Really just powerhouse in the self-publishing world. I mean, it's just crazy. It's disturbing how much money he makes. But he's so generous, and he teaches. He does the Ads for Authors course. It just, every year, throughout every other so many months, it pops up and you can buy it.
Twice a year that he opens it.
Is it twice?
Yeah. twice a
Okay,
year.
but it
and then
must stay open. Like you must. How long do you have to buy it? Do you remember?
I think you have about a month
Is
when
it?
he opens it.
Okay, so it is what I would recommend. It is something that you guys don't even need to think about until you've already self-published your book. Maybe you're starting to make money with your books, because it is not cheap. But it was the best course I've ever done.
He does offer a free mini
does?
version of, and it's like 3 videos on how to just do a
It's
very
when you
basic
subscribe.
one.
You
Yeah.
subscribe and you get 3, and they are very, very well done. So his name's Mark Dawson. He has the Ads for Authors course. That's how I learned about Facebook. I mean, I knew about Facebook ads, but that's how I learned how to do them. And then also good old trial and error. Just learning. I'm definitely a learn as I go type of person. But you could definitely think about that, okay? When it's time to self-publish your book and maybe you've had a few reviews, you could start targeting people who specifically read in your genre, who live in a certain place, who do this, who do that, and then they'd be willing to read your book. So release day. Before you do anything on release day, get a friend to take a nice photo of you with your book and use that photo everywhere. I love seeing authors with their books. I mean, this is like the coolest moment in the world. You will most likely cry, by the way, the first time that you ever hold your book in your hands. I cried. I actually opened it on Facebook Live. I had not seen my book yet, and I got the shipment in, and I did Facebook Live on my Facebook author page, and I'm like, okay guys, we're gonna do this. And I mean, I couldn't even talk. I was so excited. It's cool. Like, people want to be a part of that too.
I shook.
Oh yeah, I couldn't get the stupid thing open.
Trimmery.
I couldn't get the
Yeah,
stupid thing open. Yeah, I mean, it's just so cool. Like, what an exciting thing that you went through all of this. Like, you spent all this time writing it, revising it, working with an editor, the cover, the formatting, the pricing, the marketing. I mean, this is hard work, guys. And then I want to see what you look like the day that you hold it. I mean, that's so cool to get to see that. So you can do that on release day. Man, you guys, there's so much you can do. So I'll just give you a few quick things, but definitely send out a release day email to all your people, and it should not be, here, my book released, buy it. Like, come on, give me the reason here. Tell me about, like, for me, I did this thing. Have you guys seen Stranger Things at all? Stranger Things is really, really amazing, and they have a monster called the Demogorgon. That's the name of the monster. And so when I when I just didn't finish my book, and it was just, you know what I mean? You're just going crazy trying to finish it. I did an email newsletter called, something about, like, I'm battling the Demogorgon, and the Demogorgon was my novel. Like, I could not seem to win this battle. So when I actually published my book, I did a series and I called it I Defeated the Demogorgon. And it was like one of my most popular newsletters because they remember that. Like, they remember, man, she was working so hard on this and she finally did it. So definitely, really have some fun, geek out about it. Make sure you give them links that work to go buy your book. So send yourself a test email ahead of time before you send out the wrong link. And just share it everywhere. Put it all over the place. Remember, you've been working so hard on social media all this time, and make sure that you talk about it. If you have anybody who is blogging, like, they're putting reviews up about your book, like you had book bloggers and endorsements, and send them a quick thank you. Say, hey, I just want to say thank you so much for, putting that review up today, or posting the blog about my book. Be sure to thank them for doing that. It's also kind of like a good sheet to remind people to tweet about it, to share about it, That's a good way to do that, to email them on the day of and be like, hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for interviewing me a couple weeks ago about my book. It came out today. I'm so excited. I just want to share it with you. And, they might be prompted to share some more. And then be sure to monitor your stats. Every author's different. Every book is different. Amazon decided, screw the New York Times, I'm going to create my own bestsellers ranking list, and so they did, and so you can be number one in this, number one in that. When my author Paul Sohm self-published his leadership book, Quarter Life Calling, which was targeted toward millennials, man, he did such a fantastic job, and he wound up getting number one in, like, every little category he had. It was like leadership and Christian. I think he had like 3 actually, but he just killed it on it because he worked so hard. He did a launch team. He did the email newsletter. He just really, really worked worked super hard. So we monitor that stuff, and it was really cool to like see your ranking go up throughout the day. You know, you start out at like number 400,000, you know, in your category, and then it just keeps bumping up, and you get so excited. What in the world does that mean? If people are buying your book, and so you keep outselling the people behind you, which ups your ranking. Launch party. Well, we're not going to spend time on this one because we're running out of time. But what is a launch party? It means that when you launch your book, if you want, you can go have a physical launch party. You can like have it at a bookstore or a library. I've even seen children's authors do them at cupcake shops. I actually had one at my house. That's because it stressed me out to go do it at a bookstore. So I was just like, I'm just going to have it at my house, and I'm just going to have food, and I'm going to do a little reading. Oh my word, everyone was packed into my house. It was so fun. But then we've done book signings for Shivers in the Night at libraries and bookstores. Do that. If the mere idea of having to get out of your PJs and go like, you know, talk to people, just no, then do an online one. I've done those many times. You just make an event, little Facebook event, and you just do a Facebook launch party inside the event. Yes, I teach on that too, but it's simple. I have a cute little step-by-step handout for that if anybody wants it. Oops. Okay, so now what? The book is published, everything's done, and now you just sit there and it just sells millions of copies, right? Crystal's like, whatever. All right, so here are a few things you can do after. You know, the book is published, maybe you've done some book signings, or maybe you didn't want to do that at all because you want to stay nice and warm in your house, and you've just been working really hard on getting the book out everywhere else. Some cool ideas. You can do some more interviews. I mean, that is like guest blogs, podcasts, Facebook Live. There's even like little Twitter chats. There's so many things you can do. You can guest blog for other people about your book or vice versa. Do that. Keep the flow going. Just because your book is published doesn't mean you just stop talking about it. Be sure to attend events. I mean, and I'm not even really just talking about selling your book. I'm just talking about surrounding yourself with like-minded people, having that not just accountability, but just being able to talk to people who get the writing world. And you can sell at so many of these things. There's conferences and festivals and expos. There's a place for you to sell your book. You could host a contest or a giveaway. That's always fun. Instagram does a lot of the giveaway type stuff. Yeah, there's certain rules you have to follow, you know, but that's a really fun place to do a giveaway or host a contest of some kind to get more talk about your book. Of course, like I said, go ahead and try getting a reading or a signing done. You can go to specialty stores, boutiques, gift shops, galleries to have your book sold on consignment. Like there's a coffee shop called Vaca, and our writers group, until we got too big, would have our meetings there. And now we do our write-ins there. Well, I mean, when that book was published, the owner was like, yeah, bring over a few copies, I'll sell them for you. And he didn't even want a cut. He was just so proud of us, he just wanted to sell the book outright for us. You can have it in a coffee shop. I mean, there's just so many cool places that you can have it. Also, don't forget to keep, I mean, when I say ask for reviews, I'm not talking about driving people crazy, but, you know, it's okay to put reminders out there. And the way I like to do it is instead of, you know, saying, I really need more reviews, will you guys review my book? What I do instead is I'll post a review that somebody wrote and, you know, copy and paste it from Amazon. And I'll say, thank you so much, Erica, for this review of The Suicide Tree. It really made my day. And that is true. Like, it really does make my day. And it kind of, like, reminds people without asking them, oh, I haven't done my review for Shayla yet. I should do that. And then they'll go do it. Rather than me just, I need reviews, I need reviews. If I want to do that, I can email them privately or something and say, like, hey, I have a goal of 30 reviews. I'm wanting to review it when you still want to. Something very simple like that. Don't forget to think outside the box a little bit. Like, you can do little Q&A sessions. You could, oh man, my fantasy author friend, she does fan art contests for her fantasy novel. And it's so cool. And so she'll give out like signed copies of her books to people who draw her characters or the setting. I mean, you guys can have fun with this. Get crazy with it. There's no reason why you shouldn't have fun marketing your book. Remember we said BookBub earlier, and I explained what that was. It is really, really, really hard to get a yes from BookBub, so I gave you just a few other options. Again, not always the easiest ones, but the Fussy Librarian, Book Gorilla, Book Doggy. Mark Dawson owns Book Doggy, and he's a very successful self-published author. Wonderful guy. Open Road Media newsletter, and I'm telling you guys, there's like a list a mile long. I just shoved a few on there that I really love, that I feel like they really try to focus on high quality. What am I saying? What does this mean? Well, try to shoot to get like 15 Amazon reviews once you've self-published your book, okay? Try to shoot for that. 20 to 25 is way better, but try to shoot for 15, and then try to start getting your book on book promotion sites, okay? The reason for that is because there's no lull. It just keeps your book going and going and going. In fact, a lot of authors have seen like huge success, you know, that peak where they just go up and up and up like months after they published, because maybe they got on BookBob or they got a Fussy Librarian thing or whatever. It means that they're paying that newsletter, that website, to feature their book. It doesn't mean that they're paying every time somebody clicks on it. They're saying, okay, BookBub, I'm going to give you X amount of money to send out my book to X amount of subscribers, because it's going to be on sale for $1.99. And wow, like, man, I mean, I have some authors who make a really stupid amount of money on that. But you have to really do your research and figure out, how do I get a yes for BookGorilla? How do I get a yes for BookBub? There are articles that will give you tips and tricks on it. All right, so as we finish up, I want you guys to know that I'm always happy to help. So I am going to give you guys a few articles. I might just do it via email so that I could kind of personalize it a little bit. But that aside, I do all sorts of stuff. So I do manuscript reviews, which is a really good place to start if your book isn't complete yet and you can't afford developmental editing, but you want to try to figure out where you are with your own writing. I do that. I do writing mentorships. Those are really fun. I'm working on one right now. She's doing what's called a soul balance devotional. What that means is that instead of it being like a biblical devotional, she wants to give you self-care ideas to take care of your mind, body, and soul. It is the coolest thing ever, but she had no idea where to start. So I said, hey, like, let's do a writing mentorship. And so I built I wrote an outline for her. And she was so excited the other day because she saw it for the first time. She was, this is exactly what I wanted. So we're really excited because we've got all these cool ideas, and then I start helping her flesh it out. And I start helping her write the whole thing. Then I do editing. There's really a tiny, the only thing I don't edit Westerns. I've never read one. So I don't think I should be editing one. I don't edit erotica. I've never read erotica. I really don't need to be editing it. Academic or technical stuff, I don't edit that because I'm not smart enough to edit any of that. I love editing just about anything. I love to do consults with people and answer their questions because, there's a lot. Do you realize this is 3 hours and I've really just touched the surface? There's so many other things to learn, so those consults can be so helpful. I told you guys I do act as like a publicist. I do the book launches. I do pitching for endorsements, book bloggers. If you just want to hire me to guide you through the self-pub process, I can do that. Anything marketing. I love social media marketing. I love building websites. I love doing anything that helps you guys do this for the rest of your life. So I'm always happy to help. And that is the end of everything. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm just so happy to get to blab on and on about my favorite topic. But I would like to know, is there anything I didn't answer for you guys today? Is there anything that you feel really confused about? You feel like, man, I really wish she would have gone over X, Y, Z. Is there anything like that you guys can think of?
I have a question. I was told by someone one time, and I can't find proof that this is true.
Okay.
That if you save up and release more than one title in a month, that will temporarily bump your
release.
What is it called?
Rapid release.
Thank you, rapid release. Thank
Rapid
you.
release. Okay.
Okay, and what is the specific question?
Is that true?
Rapid release, it depends on your genre. It depends on what your goal is, because if you do 1 to 2 weeks, your goal is more sales versus retainability. If you do it per month, you can get a lot more retainability where you'll get people coming back to you for your other books.
That is true. Let me tell you why. Now, I'm not a series writer, okay? But there are articles I'm happy to send you on how to do them.
But here's the thing that bugs me about it. Like, what type of stress is on top of you to do a rapid release? I mean, that is, I was stressed out enough getting one book done, let alone, and marketing it and trying to get the word out about it up until the day of, right?
Mm-hmm.
What in the world must it be like to publish 3, 4, whatever with, I mean, that's crazy. I couldn't do that, but I just don't have the
Well, I
time.
wouldn't do it for my fantasy because those are a lot longer flavors of love. But
my name.
thinking maybe for romance it might be.
See, that's
For
where I
romance,
hear
yes.
the biggest place is with romance.
I mean, I have a draft and a half completed of like 2 different novellas
Right.
in that, and so I just was like, well, why not save up those? And
How
just-
many are you thinking about publishing?
Well, I'm finishing up the second draft, and I mean, I'd like that to be an ongoing thing that I release a couple of years at least. So,
Well, see, a couple of years isn't like a rapid release though. That's
No.
not a big deal. I mean, I'm talking about the people who literally do it like
It's
3 or
yeah.
4
I
within.
just couldn't find, like, I kept like not Google searching it to find out more about it. So, but now I know what it's called. Rapid release.
If you really want to learn a lot about that stuff, this is the Facebook group.
Okay, I will email
What's that
you
group for?
the
That
same links
Facebook
I'm gonna be
group is
emailing
good
them, but I'll probably give you a
Learning
couple of different
everything
ones.
from marketing
you
to from
have,
the
like, the
basics all the
memoir
way
and
up
stuff.
to some advanced
Um,
techniques.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Just do search. It's a huge group. They share all their resources. They share all their
Awesome.
stuff.
Yeah, but I'll make sure that you have the pre-publishing
It's
checklist.
a
And
mix
it's
of
also like,
mostly
you know,
Indian
it
and
doesn't
all.
take me long to write a 30,000 word romance.
Give you a whole list of those, but
I
then
could
also
bust
have
out a whole bunch of
different ones
those.
that are more